Wow, he's losing now. Okay, it's not over yet. Oh, rook c5, he blundered! And Robby's winning!
No way! Look at his face, he's shocked. This should heavily favor Aryan. I'd be very surprised if he doesn't win. Oh my god, commentator's curse!
Alright, and look at him go! On t-book down to seconds, Robby has to win.
Oh my.
No,
it would be
e6
8.
you take. What is e6?
Oh no!
This is over.
Wow.
Hello and welcome everybody to the 2025 season of Collegiate Chess League. I'm your host, Jules Gambit, and this is a close friend of mine that we're hosting for this week. This is Grandmaster Alexander Donchenko. How are you doing today, Alex?
I am great, thank you. It's very good to be here for the first week of the spring season, and I hope we're going to see some good games.
Yeah, I bet we're going to be off to a strong start. So for you guys here who were here last season, you probably know the match format, but I know we have some newbies in the chat, so we're going to go over it. It is 4 versus 4 team chess. All the boards are going to play each other, and the time control is 5+2. First to 8.5 points wins the match, 1 point per win, half a point per draw, and tiebreaks if the score is tied, but we haven't seen tiebreaks last season. Do you think we're going to see it today?
It's a good question. It's not very likely considering there are some heavy favorites among the teams, but let's have a look at the team lineup, and we'll go through it and judge ourselves. So, for this year's Division 1, we have the University of Missouri, aka Mizzou. Then we have SRM from India, St. Louis University, aka SLU, University Texas, Rio Grande Valley, Yale University. Then we have the Natural Technical University of Athens. Then we have Lviv State University joining from Ukraine, and the University of Virginia. These are our 8 teams.
Yeah, and those are some very, very strong teams. I know that we have our reigning champions, Mizzou. SLU also has won many years in a row. So we're going to see how they're going to do this season. I know they're going to want to take back their title. But today, we're going to look at some very important matches coming up. So we're going to see Mizzou versus Virginia. And I know Virginia scored an upset in one of the earlier rounds of last season, so they're definitely not one to discount. Then we're going to see Athens versus SLU. Games we're not going to see on stream but are still going on is SRM versus Lviv and Yale versus UT Rio Grande. So I'm not sure, but do you think are there any favorites that you're looking at in those matchups we're going to look at today?
Historically, you have to always consider Mizzou and SLU to be the favorites, simply because their players are usually, for the most part, grandmasters, and of course, upsets can happen and have happened before, but with everything else equal, they have to be the favorites.
Yeah, well, we might have a little grandmaster bias here, but you are right on that. And speaking of the favorites, we're going to take a little bit of a look at these board assignments. Do you want to take me through it?
Yep, let's see. We go to the team of Missouri first. On board 1, we have Mikhail Antipov. Then board 2 we have Aryan Tari, both grandmasters. After that, board 3 we have Ishik Chan, who is a GM elect. He's just waiting for his title to be confirmed. And board 4 we have Grandmaster Luka Borisavljevic, all of them very strong players. And in fact, I spent a lot of time with most of them playing in the US recently, so I know all of them well, which I can't say about the Virginia team. So maybe Jules, you can help me out there. Can you tell me something about their players?
Sure. On board 1, we're seeing FM Jason Moorfield, and he actually had a great run last season, so he's not one to underestimate. We're going to see board 2, NM Owen McCoy, board 3, Anish Desai, and board 4, NM Jason Liu. So it does look like Mizzou is the rating favorites, but Virginia scored kind of a crazy upset last season. I know Mizzou is not going to want to underestimate them. And as we see, the games are going to get started soon. We have all the players here. So you said you've played some of them recently. Are there any games that you in particular are looking forward to seeing?
I mean, from this lineup, we'll see how people do, because some of the Mizzou players aren't really, let's say, onliners, as you would call it. So I think Virginia has a chance to definitely punch above their weight here.
Yeah, and we're seeing this double fianchetto type opening from Mikhail Antipov. Can you tell us a little bit about that? If we're seeing here in the first board up here, it almost looks like kind of a fun close structure. I have a friend who used to play this kind of setup, but I'm not really sure what the plans are for black there.
Uh, Generally, black is just playing some kind of standard setup, controlling the center. And what is a bit curious that white has developed kind of, I wouldn't say tamely, but he's not committing to anything much yet. Usually, he will play with b3, bishop b2 eventually, and but black will just counter with d5, knight bd7, and we'll see a kind of a positional game. A lot of different plans are still possible.
Yeah,
It's probably going to be quite slow to develop.
is Mikhail eating? Maybe he knows it will be a bit slow to develop because it looks like he's having his breakfast.
I don't know. I also like sometimes when I play online chess, you're not limited by what is common etiquette when you play over the board. You can eat, drink, you can do silly faces. It doesn't bother anyone. So if you're more comfortable this way, it can just help you play.
Absolutely. It
Oh,
makes it more fun for us as well. If we want to take a look at the bird's eye view as well, and in case, unless you want to stick on this one a little bit longer.
no. Let's have a look at the other games. As I said, this one is not going to be too fast. Okay. Let's see. Where would we go? Probably let's go to board 2 to Aryan Tari and see how he is doing. He's playing black here. So we see the chess.com ratings as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah. So as we're taking a look at all these boards, which have just gotten started, we're going to take a look at Aryan's game. I know he also had kind of a rough start with the season, but he's been playing very well. We even saw him in an interview, and I think he might be a friend of yours, right?
Yeah, we spent some time when I played the U.S. Masters in Charlotte, and in general, I know him pretty well from European tournaments. Here we see he's playing, well, let's say, slightly faster than his opponent, and it was some kind of weird Rui Lopez, I assume, but the black has the bishop pair, and usually this is worth quite a lot in open position. He'll drop back the queen. Oh, maybe he won't. Maybe he'll just play queen d3 very aggressively. Yeah, this is a very strong position. You see, he will just leave the queen on d3, or play bishop a6. Yeah, there it comes. And this blockade on the d3 square, it's very, very hard to deal with for white, because this bishop on c1 and the knight on b1, the knight can maybe develop to a3, but even that will not solve all the issues. So Aryan has a great position out of the opening.
Wow, it looks like he's just absolutely dominating so far. Came to play again. Mizzou not taking any risks with their championship title here. Do we want to take a look at Bird's Eye?
Yeah, let's go back there and see. There are two more games where, in fact, the Mizzou players are white, but they are, let's say, let's go to board 3 to Ishik Chan versus Owen McCoy. I think, here we also see that here chess.com ratings are suddenly pretty close. I'm glad that we can see them, because the FIDE ratings don't tell the whole story on this one. I don't know which kind of symmetrical opening this was, but Ishik Chan is playing it very safe here. Just he has a slightly more space, some initiative. The rooks are going to be creating some pressure. Maybe he'll go something like h4 here and trying to create some pressure on the king's side, or just c3 to keep his structure solid. This one is probably also going to be pretty slow, but white has some pressure, and it's a kind of game that you like to play when you think a long game will suit you. And obviously, if you're a grandmaster and playing someone who isn't, you usually consider yourself the favorite, whether that's true or not. So I think he'll be happy with the outcome. And again, slightly up on time. It's a comfortable position, but nothing is decided, of course.
So do you think that these higher rated players tend to opt for these kind of more slower positional positions to take away the chances from their opponents?
I think in this particular case, this is true, and some people like to do it almost all the time. But it's quite a safe bet when you know that you might not win the game in 30 moves, but you have a better chance to win it in 60 moves. So you just keep playing. You know that on average your moves are going to be slightly better probably, and you will get your chances eventually. I would play something like h3 maybe the next when black probably has to maybe play bishop d8, try to trade pieces. Yeah, and that's the move he plays. I like that one. If he takes off the rooks, it's going to be very close to equal. But these positions are not. There's not too much going on still. So I think this is going to be a long game. I
Well,
think
speaking of action,
we should go back and take a look.
We definitely have some action heating up on the other boards. By the way, good morning to everybody in chat. Good morning, B-dubs and all the chatters who are coming in. We're really excited to have you here for the first day of CCL. So it looks like Jason Moorfield's in a little bit of trouble here.
Yeah, let's take a look at board 4. Jason Moorfield, as you said, I think he did very, very well last year. But in this game, his position isn't looking too good. And what's more, it might just be collapsing after the knight has to move back, let's say to e6, and knight d5 will just pick up some material. That's why he's trying to create confusion, but this will cost him at least a pawn. And as we see, this bishop hitting f6 is also a big nuisance for black. So I think that this position might just be winning already for white. Luka Budisavljevic off to a great start here.
Yeah, and Mizzou is absolutely having like a training dummy with Jason's face on it, because he actually swept 4-0 Mizzou last year, and that was just a crazy upset. But he can definitely play and hold his own with a lot of these grandmasters. So I know that no one's going to be underestimating him here, but he does not look happy with his position. Like sometimes you can just tell with their facial expressions as well.
Yeah, knight a7 picks up the exchange, and considering the time advantage, this should be one in the bag for Mizzou, at least for this round. I don't know what Luka is thinking about. Probably double checking, but it should be a win in many ways now.
I'm also
let's go back to the bird's eye view probably. So,
yeah, Jason's
just
our board
to see what's
one.
going on.
So it's very important for him that he gets this win against a board 4. It's going to be a little tough to start with that kind of loss, but we'll see how it's going. Also, Aryan Tari seems to be absolutely dominating. Actually, a very good, I think, masterclass and some positional play there in board 2. And then actually against Antipov and Jason Liu, that's a pretty interesting game there. It seems like Antipov is struggling to get a win for his team there. Jason Liu seems to be doing quite well. Can you take us through that a little bit?
Well, let's go to it. Here they actually have a heavy piece endgame with white being 2 pawns up, but usually it's quite tricky to convert. But now I don't like this move. This move rook a1. It trades off one of the 2 pieces you only have left for black to create counterplay. There. Of course, what he's counting on is that after takes, he will take and try to give a perpetual with queen a1, queen e5. But white doesn't have to take himself, and you have to be very sure when you exchange your very active piece on a2. Because with a rook on a2, he would have always had chances to create counterplay. But here, Antipov might be in trouble. Of course, Jason Liu has to find a way to avoid the perpetual first, and he's going low on time for that. But it is a very critical moment in the game because he has to find a move, and he found it. Queen d8. This is great. Now, if black takes, white will walk the king out to e2 and use his queen to protect himself from the checks. He might even lose one of his 2 pawns, but it is a very good find, and I think here it's going to be it's going to be a game for 2 results. It's not clear if he'll win, but definitely queen d8 is a big step there.
Yeah, that was awesome from him. And also that passed pawn is just going to become a monster on a5 there. But is there anything else Jason Liu has to watch out for? I know Antipov can be pretty tricky. Yeah,
you see now Antipov realized that rook a1 didn't achieve its purpose, and he keeps the rooks on after all. But now white regrouped his pieces and is just playing 2 pawns up. So unless he blunders one of the pawns, he can just slowly try to activate his pieces, and he should be well on his way to win the game, as long as he watches his clock again, because they are getting quite low on time.
Absolutely.
Let's probably go back, because we already have some games finished.
Yeah, and this is going to be very important that Jason Liu wins this, because as we already see, Aryan Tari from Mizzou, as well as Luka from Mizzou, have both taken a point So in order to tie the score, Virginia is going to need to take a point on both of these boards. And that would be a major upset for Jason Liu, so I know that can also be a little stressful. But the board in contention right now is Owen McCoy versus Ijia Khan. So can you tell us a little bit about what you think of that position?
Yeah, here, of course, it would be very nice for Black to win, to have a chance to level the score. But since it's kind of it's a 4-game match essentially for each player. You don't have to go into very high risk mode yet. And Black has been doing a good job. He exchanged one pair of rooks. He also has this very healthy structure on the light squares, and the pawn on f6 is limiting this knight. This knight is going to f7. Black is regrouping very nicely, and he's absolutely not worse. The problem is for him that he can't really ever be better unless White messes up in some big way. So here we'll see. He just has to play patiently, maybe with knight f7, and wait for his chance. g6, it's probably a decent move, but I don't know. If you wanted to give yourself the option of playing for a win, you would probably hold back on it. But again, this knight on h8, it looks very, very passive, but it's keeping the position solid, and I think Black has good chances for a draw here, at least. We'll see, of course.
Absolutely, yeah. We will see, but in the meantime, there's huge heat going on in that Jason Liu Mikhail Antipov game. So let's check out Bird's Eye View, take a look at that game, and see if Jason's able to convert. So look at this time pressure here too. It can be a little stressful. You don't want to hang any sort of perpet, and it looks like this could be an issue. Tell us what's going on here.
Yeah, let's go into the game. We have a queen endgame where Antipov won back one of the pawns. He actually won both pawns back now, and both are at around 20 seconds or lower. So I think here he really escaped somehow. He managed to get out of it with his activity, and this queen endgame, it looks like it should be a draw. There's not much play for either side, because if Black takes, White will always have a perpetual of his own. So I don't know. I think Antipov will try to press this for a win. He'll maybe go back to d4 or even d6 and try to push for a win somehow. Well, let's see. Yeah, he goes back. He could have taken a perpetual, but I think he's trying for more here.
That's really interesting, and that would be really tough for Virginia to get that 3 score there. But we're seeing that we have GM Benjamin Bach in chat. He says, good to see that CCL is in good hands with Alexander. So you have a fan in chat there.
Yeah, I know that Ben is usually the one responsible for my part here. So I hope I can do him justice.
Absolutely.
And yeah, we see already Jason Liu is the one trying to force a draw, because even though the position is equal, he has to watch out a little more because his king isn't as safe. And I think Antipov he's always trying to escape the checks. He'll maybe walk the king over, and he'll try to walk the king maybe even all the way. But in general, there's not much he can do here. It should be a draw eventually.
And
I think we should go back to Bird's Eye.
Yeah, let's take a look.
Oh yeah, that's true.
We'll take a look at Bird's Eye, because we also have that last game heating up there too with Ijia Khan and Owen McCoy. So who is pressing in this situation? You said earlier there was likely to be a draw. Is that still the case?
It looks more likely than ever, but Black has honestly done a splendid job just defending this slightly worse position, and honestly gotten everything he could have possibly gotten out of it. It's just that it's not going to be a win unless White maybe goes to h5. Yeah, he does. And now there's the knight is going to come in, and he's just, wait, how does he come in? How does it come? I don't know, via e8 and g7. He's just going to checkmate him.
Wow.
Knight d6, knight e8. Yeah.
Do you think he's
just going to checkmate him? He is going to see it, yes. And now after knight f3, he's going to go knight e4 to protect the g5 pawn from any sacrifices. And Ishik-chan, he overcommitted. This is what I mean. Yeah, now he's forced to take, and this is going to be an easy win.
Oh, wow. Oh, that was
It's very often the case. It's very often the case. You just play patiently, and your opponent, you've been playing for a win for forever, and you don't sense the danger anymore, and you suddenly put your king where it can be mated. This is a huge win. It's a huge win for Owen McCoy and for the team of Virginia.
Oh wow! And he looks so happy there. That was also just a very great game. And it's very helpful too for Virginia, because right now it's going to be 3-1, I believe. It would be really hard to come back from 4-0, but 3-1 gives a little bit more chances, and you just can tell he is so happy with how he played there. That was very beautiful.
Yeah, it was an amazing game, and it was rewarded even more than objectively maybe would have been expected. But this is how you play. You play patiently, you wait for your chance, and then you use it.
Absolutely. And we see here Mizzou is 3-1. Antipov scored a point. Tari scored a point. Khan lost his game, and Luca scored a point. Jason Moorfield lost. Owen McCoy won his game. Very good result there. Anish lost, and then NMG SLU lost a 3-1. It is going to be a little bit difficult to come back, but I think they might be able to do it. What do you think? Are they going to have trouble here in round 2?
Definitely nothing is decided yet, and this win is also, let's say, big for morale. The one from Owen McCoy, that it is possible to win games here, because for example, in Antipov's game, it can be very demoralizing if you're Jason Liu and you're winning, and then you have a dead drawn position, and then somehow in time trouble the grandmaster swindles you. But sometimes it can be the other way around, as it was here. So if they keep up with that, they still have chances, very much so.
Absolutely. And we're going to see what is happening here with the board lineups for round 2. If Virginia is able to come back a little bit, we're going to see Antipov versus Desai there. We're going to see GM Aryan Tari versus NM Jason Liu. I am Isak Khan versus FM Jason Moorfield. And GM Luca versus NM Owen McCoy. Are there any matches here that you're particularly excited to see?
Let me think. Honestly, I'm most curious about how Owen McCoy will do after this win, and I'm also very curious to see how Jason Liu will do after his loss, which he had, which he probably shouldn't have suffered. So, because usually either both very good and very bad emotions can lead to interesting things on the board.
Yeah, do you feel that after you lose a game, it can be kind of difficult for you to come back, especially in Blitz? Or is it a skill set to be able to just set it aside?
In Blitz, it can be very hard to do that, but good players learn that with experience, of course. In Classical, it can sometimes be the other way around. If you score a huge upset win, then you struggle to calm down. But in Blitz, it's usually the opposite.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And speaking of Classical, we're also seeing our commentator for the season, Grandmaster Benjamin Mock, is playing Tata Steel. So best of luck for him for that. Do you have any upcoming tournaments that you have on your docket, Alex?
Unfortunately, I really do not. Yeah, for the next 2 months or so. So here I am watching other people play and feeling like I could do with some games myself.
Yeah, that's the thing about watching. Every time I ever watch any sort of like Chess.com stream or anyone playing, I always get the temptation to play myself. Hopefully that will carry over, because I actually have a tournament round right after this commentating. I'm going to be driving over and immediately sitting down at a board. So we'll see how that goes. And speaking of, the games have started here, and that is kind of a wild position there on Tari's board, or I guess it's not super wild, but we're going to see something kind of interesting there. Are there any of the games in particular you think will heat up?
Honestly, board 1 looks pretty spicy from what I can see already, because the opening was not exactly standard. I think we can go there and have a look. It's Mikhail Antipov playing against Anish Desai, and it was some very non-standard Sicilian, I believe, with some early knight d4. We see this d4 pawn. It is a bit of a weakness probably. So, but it can also give black some space. Basically everything revolves around this pawn and how both sides will handle it. If black takes, usually white would take with the bishop, and he would get a strong pawn center. Here, maybe a move like e5 can even work. I think e5 might be pretty good. Yeah, and the knight can come into d6, and again, we are targeting this pawn and locking the bishop on c8 away. I think white got the better out of the opening here. We'll see by how much, but black is going to struggle to develop the bishop on c8, and white can maybe even play bishop f3 and just keep some initiative here. So I think that this one is going pretty well. I think we should, let's go back to the bird's eye view so we don't miss everything that's going on.
Yeah, we'll take a little bit of look at the action there, and I'm looking at the position there on board 2.
Yeah, I think you're right. We should definitely have a look at that. what is going on here?
I mean,
Aryan is white
Tari,
against Jason Liu. Yeah,
and he's
and
bathed in darkness too with his camera over there. And apparently that might be helping his chess because, like, look at this position. It's definitely something interesting. But how do you convert
he
something like
is. Yeah,
this?
I mean, he is up a pawn, so there are two ways. The normal way would be to start exchanging pieces, and the boring way. But I think he's not about this. He looks like he's out to get the black king, which he has all the reason to do, because this pawn is in fact protecting it for now. But all other pieces that white has in play, something like rook e5 followed by rook e7, it's just probably going to crash through with brute force in a matter of moves here. In fact, I think rook e5 can be very, very strong here. I don't know what the defense is even supposed to be. Aryan has
Yeah,
all the time in the world to take a look and be sure of it, but in general, his king on d2 is so much safer, and we see him take. And after queen a2, he will probably he takes on g6 first, and rook takes e7 will follow, and there is not much that is left defending the king. Rook a1 is a very nice move. Yeah, deflecting the queen from the rook on f7, and this game will probably be over very soon. So I think we should go back and look at the other two boards that we haven't seen yet.
yeah, as you say, good night. But we're gonna take a look here at some of the other boards. I'm looking at some of the positions. The Jason Moorfield Ejit Khan is a little bit interesting. You have that open king, but perhaps you can move that rook to the open file. What do you think of that game in particular? Just as
let's go to this board. Honestly, I think this Jason Moorfield is doing pretty well here, and he is basically doing what he did last round as well. Sorry, no. Wait. Oh no, I'm mixing something up here. Am I not? Was he the one who won last round?
Jason Moorfield? No, Jason did not win last round.
He lost. He lost to Antipov. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so.
He did, but he's done well in previous iterations.
No, he lost to Budisavljevic. So I'm sorry. Yeah, no, but in this game here, he's definitely playing it very, very safe and solid, and I like that because he is not down on the clock. He's keeping things solid, and Isik Chan, who played such a game last round, he finally overpushed there. So here we'll see how it goes. White has the bishop pair, and this structure is broken up, but it's not too bad because he can cover the e4 pawn with f3. And in general, he's slightly better. He can play reasonably fast and easy moves. This bishop is unopposed at creating some pressure. It's a nice position to play. Of course, there's no way to win it quickly or anything, but it's a good position to have, I would say.
Absolutely. And we just got a raid from Chess24. Thank you for the massive raid. Welcome, raiders. I'm your host, Jules Gambit. This is my friend and co-host for this week, GM Alexander Donchenko. We're happy to have you here. This is Collegiate Chess League, so we're watching some exciting games going on here. And do we want to stick on this game or do we want to go back to Birdseye? What do you think?
I think here he'll just keep massaging for a small advantage. We should go back to Birdseye and look at probably the one game that we haven't looked at so far, which is Olin McCoy versus Luka Budisavljevic.
Alrighty, we can take a look at that game there.
And this one, you can see the eval bar, and it is showing everything that the position has to offer. Olin McCoy is on a roll. There's no other way to put it. He can exchange queens, which is but probably knight d5 immediately is a much stronger move to force black to exchange and keep all of this passive. If white takes the pawn here and exchanges queens, he's not only up a pawn, he's up everything basically in positional terms. So this is a very good chance for him to again just score straight up. He still has 2 minutes to versus Budisavljevic 3, so it could be a source of concern. Honestly, Luka has to kind of try to avoid the exchange of queens. Probably some move like King B2 will just keep an overwhelming advantage here. But with queens on, there's always some chance for a miracle to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just crazy how amazing he's doing so far. And that's something that you predicted before, that once you get a really nice win, and it was just a beautiful win, I think you got from Ija Khan, who is GM elect, if I'm correct. Now he's playing another GM and he has just a dominating position. So maybe that momentum can kind of carry Virginia. What do you think?
Yeah, if you have one player who you know will always do really well, it just gives you some motivation, because in a 4-player match, there's not so much you need to score points. Yeah? So we should go back and see how it's looking right now. I think we already have one game finished.
All right, let's take a look. Yeah, and we see Aryan Tari is just absolutely killing it so far. He's 2-0, just finished his game, first one of the round. Also looks like Jason Moorfield's managed to pick up the position a little bit, and Antipov is just absolutely dominating here. It looks like that game will end pretty shortly.
Yeah, we should probably go back to the Jason Moorfield versus Isak Khan game, and yeah, we still have this kind of the same structure that we saw before. But this is what I mean. He's playing it very patiently. If we see the position hasn't changed much from when we last looked at it, but he's keeping his advantages in the end game. He advanced this pawn up the board here to trade it off and create some weaknesses, and this pawn is weak, and White's bishop is still more active than the knight. He has the nice square on d5. These are all small things, but together they add up, and they give him a chance to really put the pressure on here. The only thing that's concerning is that he's down a minute, and we know that when it comes down to the last seconds, weird things can happen, and well, even the best games can be spoiled.
Yes, absolutely. And it looks like we just got a blunder from Owen McCoy, so we should go and check that out, because that is got to be devastating, especially since now we see Antipov taking a point. So it's currently 2-0 Virginia this round, but still some games to go. Oh, and he's back. Okay, this is some time pressure shenanigans.
The evaluation is going crazy, but we see here White has 20 seconds. 20 seconds is not a lot of time. So now Luca can take the time, find some move like Rook AC8 that is very tricky to face, and it's not going to be easy to deal with this. I think Rook AC8 might even be a good move, but here he can just take this 30 seconds, even up to 1 minute, and pose some problems. He played Rook AB8, which is probably still not so bad, and now, okay, Rook, the computer is suggesting this, but it looks like a very hard move to find in a blitz game. I would be honestly surprised. Anything that's more like Queen F4 or Queen E2 comes to mind immediately. But yeah, it is possible that even 20 seconds will be enough to consolidate for Owen McCoy and maybe bring the game home. But it's going to remain very tricky. There's a mate threat you have to account for. Probably something like Queen D4 is not a good move. What can White play? Knight A? No, knight. He played Queen C2, which is a safe choice. But now Black can exchange, and he probably has to exchange and play a pawn down Rook endgame. It might still be close to winning, but it's a hard call to make here. So you see, below 10 seconds. Below 10 seconds, the greatest miracles happen, but usually not for the one who has them.
And he doesn't want to go for the queen trade, probably because he wants to create the most issues as possible. With when his opponent is very low on time, and just hangs the rug.
Yes.
Oh, no.
This is what happens. He moved with 2 seconds. And with 2 seconds, you just move. You don't think anymore.
Yeah,
now
and that's
just trade it off, or yeah, this is going to be a win for Luca. And sometimes you feel that this is just not the way the game should go. But in Blitz, this is how they very often just go. Rook D1 might be a good trap. But he doesn't find it. Rook D1 had an idea that you can't easily take on C4. Ah, no, it didn't even work. No, I think the game is basically over now.
Yeah, and it is just very tough. That's what happens when you're playing with so little time, especially against someone very experienced. And perhaps it was a good move, even if the engine didn't agree to keep his queens on the board. But this looks like it is going to be a victory for Mizzou. And that would mean so far it would be 3-0 Mizzou, and everything would kind of be resting on the Isak Khan Jason Moorfield game there.
Oh, I see that there was some kind of huge swing right there. The game just ended. The game. Okay. Then we can. I think we can stick on this one until. McCoy resigns. There's just nothing left to do. So we can. We can see probably all the results now.
Yeah, and that is heartbreaking there too, especially to have a lot of those results that just is determined by time pressure. And that happens a lot here when you're playing 5+2. You really think that since you're playing a format that maybe is more than you would play online time-wise, you can just take your time. But we see so many blunders happening, especially last season, just when you're under time pressure. So keeping that time is very, very important. And it was a huge sweep for Mizzou this round. I believe they won all of their games, if I'm correct there.
Yes, we didn't even see how Isik Khan won the game. It just instantly swung and ended in a win. So it's with these kind of blitz scenarios, it can happen in a matter of seconds. And that's why you always need to preserve your time. Basically, no matter what happens, if you're short on time, unless you're one of like a handful of people who can do it, you will suffer for the consequences.
Yes, absolutely. And a really tough round for Virginia, where they were not able to score a point. And remember, it is forced to 8.5. So we'll see, will this end in round 3? They'll still be playing on for tie breaks, but we'll see if Mizzou is able to get to 8.5. In the meantime, we're going to take a break, so stick with us. We'll be back shortly. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to 2025 Collegiate Chess League. I'm your host, Jules Gambit. This is my co-host, Grandmaster Benjamin Buck, and we are going into round 3 of the Mizzou-Virginia match, and Mizzou is absolutely sweeping so far. Do you think they'll be able to hit 8.5 in this next round?
Honestly, it's a very good chance because so far they have been quite dominating, and they just have had the edge whenever it came to the time scrambles, and the time scrambles are what gives you the most points.
And I'm sorry that I called you Grandmaster Benjamin Buck. This is
I did-
my
I did-
close friend, Grandmaster Alexander Donchenko, but I am just so used to my introductions with our other co-host, Grandmaster Benjamin Buck, that I guess I just have that in my head here. But we're happy to have you, Alex.
Thank you. Yeah, in all of my uniqueness.
All of your uniqueness, yes. And we're going to see the round 3 of Mizzou versus Virginia. So far, Mizzou has 7 points to 1. We're going to see Antipov versus Owen McCoy, Aryan Tari versus Jason Moorfield, Ija Khan versus Jason Liu, and Luca versus Anish. Are there any games in particular that you think are going to get a little spicy this round?
We'll have to see. So far, if we are looking for anyone who has given chances on the Mizzou team, it's probably their bottom 2 boards. Isik Chan was the only one who gave away any points so far, and Luca was also very much on the edge last round. So probably, I would think in those 2 games, Virginia has to look for chances. But of course, it's a blitz game again, so we can never tell in advance.
That's true. And I'm just laughing at all the comments right now in all the chats. But we do have a raid from WFM Anna Kuchava. Thank you so much for the raid there. And as we say, the game's getting started. Here, I usually like to play the Rosalimo, but it looks like we're going to see some sort of close Sicilian.
Yes, and we see Owen McCoy is opting for a G3 setup, maybe followed by C3, trying to get D4 in. Yeah, Black goes E5 against that. He'll develop a D6 knight E7. I like to play this with Black usually, but obviously White's setup is kind of a reverse King's Indian now. He'll play something like knight D2, C3, rook E1. It's going to be a kind of slowish maneuvering game, and we'll see who that fits better, but usually the one advantage that close Sicilian players have is that they play close Sicilian more often than their opponents.
Yeah. And as we've kind of seen or talked about last season as well, it does seem like Antipov, or we know that Antipov is really good at his theory. I believe he's a second for Fabiano Caruana. He usually tends to know what he's doing theory-wise. But I do know that facing these close Sicilians can be very frustrating.
Yeah, you see he puts the knight on c3 to prevent any d5 ideas. So Black will probably play with d6, and White is preparing this maneuver knight c4, maybe knight e3 even. And the bishop usually goes out to g5 to either get traded for the knight straight up or to maybe play queen d2, bishop h6. You see this is also why he plays h6, but now White can maybe go f4. White's play is very straightforward when you are used to these kind of positions. That's why I think it might be a good choice for McCoy to play this against Antipov, who in most structures probably has more experience than him.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at that f4 move. With f4, would you want to take back with the pawn or the bishop?
That really depends. Yeah, in this case, probably the bishop. But here we see that he played a very strange move, knight b5, forcing d5. He was counting on being able to take with the bishop, but there was a tactical problem with that. So now he has to kind of improvise, which might still work out. He protects the knight. And now this pawn is just hanging. He can pick it up for free. I'm not sure what the idea is, but he just takes the pawn. And now he can go back to a5 even.
Yeah,
maybe even to d6, but this is just a free pawn. So the opening worked out brilliantly there.
Yeah, and should we take a look at bird's eye view to see some of the other games?
Yeah, let's do this.
Yeah, we had someone in chat mention Aryan Tari. He is playing and he's been doing very well so far. Again, Mizzou only needs 1.5 points this round to take home the match. Are there any games in particular you're kind of liking the gist of here?
Let's go to board 3. I think this one is going to be a sharp one. was a kind of, I think, Sicilian Najdorf between Ishik-chan and Jason Liu. And but I know most of all that Ishik-chan is usually very well prepared, because I played him with black in the Najdorf in the game that scored him his GM title. So you have to watch out if you allow these kind of things against him. White is ready to castle long here, maybe even here, but probably not. I'm not sure. No, here castling would be a mistake, so he castles the other way. And the pawn on b2 isn't really hanging, because white just plays any move like bishop d4. He doesn't care about this pawn at all. All he cares about is preventing black from completing his development. He's ready to play anything like g6 and sometimes even knight d5, playing very, very aggressively. So I think this is a promising position, but both players have a lot of time, so a lot of resources to be found here. I think they're going to be playing rather slowly. Then we should probably go back to bird's eye and see what's happening on the other boards.
All right, we can take a look. And going into bird's eye here, also looking at any like particularly interesting positions. Jason Moorfield versus Tari is pretty interesting. Are there any others that you like?
Now, I think we should go to Jason Moorfield versus Tari, because there's a very interesting piece placement in this position. If you see the queen on b7, it probably took a pawn there recently, and now it's a question whether it's a strength or a weakness, because for now, obviously, black has to defend his own queen, and it could get quite awkward. In fact, I like white's position here. Yeah, queen b8 is Tari is accepting that he has to deal with this, with the queen on b7 this way, but now white can play something like rook e2, and he has this very solid, very good structure limiting the knight on c6, and he should have at least a slight advantage here. So this is a kind of safe endgame that you would want to play normally. He is down on time though, Jason Moorfield, that is, and we have seen before it can be a problem. Knight d5 is an active try. He if rook b2, then he wants to probably take on. No, the knight was just hanging. Yeah, knight drops back, and now knight c7. Yeah, knight c7. He's going for it, but on the flip side, well, black's pieces are currently very active, and he will get some of these pawns back. So it's kind of a question how much control white can keep here.
And I know personally sometimes I'm a little scared to play endgames against higher rated players because you automatically assume they have good endgame knowledge. I know Tari has good endgame knowledge. Do you think this psychologically could influence Moorfield's play?
It's possible, yeah, but so far, even getting this quiet, slightly better position was a pretty good choice. And honestly, this one should be, I know this is a big word, but it should be unlosable, because he will eventually get the a5 pawn, even if he loses both of his, and he can just try to keep the game going as long as possible. But here, at least, Virginia should score at the very least half a point.
Okay, and that's something we will definitely take a look at. Do we want to go to bird's eye view, see what's going on, especially since Mizzou only needs a 1.5 points, so they're going to try to get it by any means necessary there. And looks like Owen McCoy is doing fairly decently against Antipov. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh yeah, this game developed very, very nicely. Yeah, this was after he won the pawn, and now he's up 2 at the moment because he just took on h4, and his king looks a little bit airy, but it shouldn't be a big deal because he can now take on e5 and continue protecting his king, maybe even bishop g3. But possibly rook f4 is a better move because this pawn is currently, it's nice where it is, and bishop g3 would allow black to get some play. I like this rook e2. He's just keeping the control over the dark squares, and 2 pawns is a lot. So if he manages to exchange pieces in any way, it should make his position outright winning. But of course, black is trying to maybe go for queen h6 and some kind of idea with g3 to create counterplay. In a classical game, this would all be ghosts, but in a blitz game, you never know what might actually work, especially since Antipov, as pretty much everyone from the Mizzou team, is up on time again. So if this goes on like this for 2 minutes, then suddenly every threat can become a big one.
Yeah, that's very true. And being down on time, as we've seen, did not do him any favors in the last round there. Is there an easy way to kind of protect against all of this, or do you just have to look at threat by threat?
At this point, there is no easy way for White to play this. He has to keep his king safe, and he has to keep h2 protected while looking for ways to exchange pieces, and they're not straightforward. His position is great, of course. Some move like rook f2 would be very solid. That's what I would play probably. But you can't really force the issue here, and it will bleed more time off his clock. Move like bishop h1, it's not bad, but again, it's slightly awkward, and it makes you rethink every decision after that as well. So it's going to be hard to manage it with little time.
Yeah, and I'm wondering what the idea was with queen e8 there. Maybe just getting a little bit more active, but is there a concrete idea that I'm just missing there?
I'm not sure. I think honestly, he might have just missed this move because he really doesn't want to trade pieces, but now he has no choice but to do it. So White can trade and then put the queen on g3 and then to f4. It makes it so much easier to keep control. So I'm not sure what Antipov wanted to do there. Let's maybe go back and have a look, because I think we already have one decisive game.
All right,
which is that Luka Borisavljevic already won. I think it was some kind of blunder, because judging from the final position. But this means that Mizzou needs only half a point more, and we should maybe take a look at the game on board 3, because they are about to get points there, from what I can see, or are very likely to. Isik Chan really went ham. He did not spare any expense in terms of pieces, and he's going for the king. You see,
okay. He's absolutely. He is going ham. That's a good word for it. And it's going to be a little bit hard, because you always want to have this direct follow-up in positions like this. You always want to find that one move that wins, but it's kind of tough to see where it would be.
Here, that's probably not the case, because his main asset is the rook on g8 that's really stuck, and it can't even give itself with the bishop on g7 easily, because there would be a passed pawn on g7. So, strangely enough, this is not one of those do or die positions. He has basically, in a way, positional compensation, though of course queen f5 creates a direct threat, and he decides to go for it with the rook f7. I'm not sure I like this, but I mean, he calculated something, and obviously in blitz you have to rely on your calculation if you can't see anything else. So yeah, here we are, queen e3, king h1. The rook looks very scary, but White has no big threat at this on the very next move. Yeah, so he just took on e4, and now the position is still somehow okay, but it can quickly turn around, and he is the one who's down on time in this case. Very rare for Mizzou on any board to be down on time, so he has to play a move. He played rook f2, which is decent. He's keeping everything together, but playing with low time is tricky, no matter how good you are.
That's very true, and I would like to point out that now Mizzou is at 8.5, so they have won this match. That being said, they're still going to be playing round 4, because we are having tie-break points for the regular season. So each point can matter when it comes to qualifying. You never know what could happen. So they're still going to bring their A game there, but we might see some kind of exciting chess in this next round. Yeah, it definitely looks like this position, especially with little time, could be tough. But maybe he has a tactic here. Let me look. All right,
I think this is not so much a tech. He gave check, but now rook d. Okay, these are very hard moves to find for both sides, honestly. And now something like rook e2, I think, wins on the spot. Yeah, rook e2 is probably winning, and he finds it. Yeah. And now, even though it's an endgame, White will just win the piece. Win the piece back, takes, and he will double on the e file and win basically everything. And once you get this winning line, you can calculate it instantly. Yeah, so he will find this and he will take the bishop, and you don't need to spend time here anymore. It's the position before that's very tricky to handle.
Yeah, it's gonna be a win here, as we're seeing another point. Every point matters for tiebreaks. It also looks like Antipov is winning his game as well, which just means that Mizzou is absolutely sweeping, and they've really been upping their game. They won last time, so this is a strong start to the season for them.
There is still one game ongoing though, which is Mikhail Antipov's game. I think he managed to trick his way out of it yet again, but no, I think that this one might also be over soon. But they are playing with very little time, so anything can still happen basically. Yeah, he's going to repeat once. It's very hard. You are on seconds, and you might just take the draw if you're very nervous. Let's see what he does.
It's
Queen
hard to
d4,
make
yeah.
that decision.
Yeah, but Antipov he's always trying to go for it. I think we can credit him with that. Oh, he just blundered the rook.
Oh my!
And if rook e1, bishop f1, and he covers everything. Rook g2.
Honestly, the blitz skills of Owen McCoy is so impressive.
And now just give some checks and exchange the queens. Yeah, this one's a win for Virginia.
Yeah, and Owen McCoy is just doing very, very well in these games, but some nice finds there. It still is the win for Mizzou, but that is probably a good morale booster for the rest of the season for Virginia.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like they should be swept as hard as they were, because they were often throwing away positions in time trouble. But here, for once, it's basically it's Antipov who decided to not take the draw in severe time pressure, and now he gets punished for it.
Yeah, and I mean, we've seen that's a common thing. You just don't want to take the draw. If you're the higher rated player as well, you can also assume that maybe you'll be a little better under blitz. But here it seems that he is just absolutely on fire, Owen McCoy, and I'll be excited to see what he does in the last round too.
Yeah, we'll see, because now there's no pressure on either team really. They're just playing for tie breaks and for, let's say, personal honor. So we might see a little bit of a different approach than usual.
Right, and I'm looking at this position. If a pawn was off of the board, this would remind me of another very famous game. Do you know which one I'm thinking of, Alex?
I think I might know which one you mean.
The famous Hikaru versus Alexander Donchenko game of 2024.
Yeah, of course, with the pawn, it's not really interesting. But yeah, I had the pawnless endgame at the World Rapid Championship, and I almost lost it to Hikaru, but fortunately was conscious enough in the moment to try for a 50-move draw when I was about to get mated. Here, of course, none of this will matter because White has a pawn, and he's trying for some stalemate tricks, but the under promotion was very nice. Yeah, it's a good way to end the game.
And you can see him smile. He's just been absolutely killing it. That being said, Mizzou still has the points they need. They're going to go into round 4. And I think you're right that Virginia really should not have gone swept the way that they've been getting swept. But it is a strong start for the board 2 from Virginia there. They're going to be playing for tie breaks in this next round, which is very important. So maybe we'll see the players, as you said, relax, let up a little bit, play some exciting chess. But we'll see what we're going to get in this final round, knowing that now the match is decided.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if we get some more, let's say, open fights. And unlike those kind of grind style positions that we had often, where one side has a slightly better endgame and is sitting on it for 10 minutes and then it comes to time trouble, I think here people might just go all out because they have nothing to lose. They might also play some funny openings.
Yeah, and we see a draw between Jason Moorfield and Aryan Tari. We see a win for Owen McCoy versus Antipov. And then EJ Khan won his game as well as Luca, bringing it to 9.5 to 2.5. Mizzou takes the match, but again, still we have last round here. I hope that your prediction is true, that we're going to get some kind of crazy chess here.
Yeah, let's see. It's interesting because I think Owen McCoy is the one who scored 2 out of those 2.5 points. Yeah, so very, very successful day for him so far. But honestly, Mizzou had chances to drop more points, but 90% of the time they were just up on time and they were utilizing it very, very well.
Yeah, time is one of the most important things here, something that a lot of players underestimate, but it seems like Mizzou has really come to win this season, so very strong start. And yeah, I see in the chat, right, Donchenko was the one who called for the 50 moves move right before the mate. Yes, there was some really good Instagram shorts and reels made about that if you want to watch it, maybe even a YouTube video. But we see the game starting here. We have our first game versus board 1's Jason Moorfield and Mikhail Antipov. We're going to see all the boards playing their coinciding board this round.
Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. Yeah, if we can take a look at the board 1, he just played bishop e3 in a pretty much standard what's it called, Richter-Rauser line, and then he just let the bishop be taken on e3. It's Antipov knows these kind of rare lines, and you see he still has 5 minutes 10, so he's basically pre-moving every single move, and it's a very interesting idea. Yeah, you just ruin your structure, you ruin everything, but you have all your pieces out, and you just create threats before black is ready.
Yeah,
So he's
and
still move 1 second for the move. He's still booked up.
yeah, he's using he's not even using his full increment. He has more time than when he started. And that's what we talk about when we say he's just an absolute theoretician. And this is probably a really fun opportunity for him just to kind of, as you say, go ham.
Yeah, it's also not the kind of line he would play in classical, because you can't figure it out if given 5 or 10 minutes or something. But you don't have those here, so you just try something that's interesting, and it can often work out very, very well. Here, at the very least, he's up a minute, and he definitely knows his position is fine, at least.
Yeah, and we also see that the other games have started. Do you want to take a look?
Yeah, let's go check out the other games.
Alrighty, let's take a look here. And I'm really excited to see what Owen McCoy does here. Is kind of on a roll there. Any other openings look particularly spicy too? I see what must be a Roy Lopez there in board 3, which is interesting to me because that is something that I've started playing recently. And maybe
we can go have a look at board 3, because I believe Owen McCoy and Aryan Tari are still very much in theory. So let's have a look at board 3 instead.
All right.
And
So, yeah. Go ahead.
I think this was one of those early bishop c5 lines, and Anish did not react in the most usually critical way with c3 d4, just playing d3 and kind of a quiet game, maybe some knight d2 here. And in general, when white can always kind of opt out of any really critical lines and just play a long game here. But when black can exchange these bishops without basically sacrificing anything for it, he's usually fine. But it's going to be a very quiet positional game. And if you're not an e4, e5 player, you often struggle with these positions. You don't know which of the 10 different plans to go for. Here, knight h5 is played. Knight takes e5 is often an idea against this, but here knight f4 is an intermediate move again. So this one wouldn't work here. And yes, suddenly rook e1, a very natural move, and after knight f4, black is taking over the initiative somehow. It's basically its own world. These e4, e5 positions where it doesn't look like there's much to do, but still you have to do something, and it can always be right or wrong.
Yeah, and we see instead queen out there. Does it give white the opportunity to, I don't know, eventually do something like that knight f1 reroute, which I'm sure is an idea that he would be considering? Otherwise, is it just too slow?
Now here he this is what he has to play, and he might exchange the bishop, so bishop e3. But black is already very active, and knight d4 would trade off the f3 knight, and the pressure on f2 is already hard to deal with, because white just lost maybe 1 or 2 moves on the way to this position. If he already had bishop e3, he would just be equal. But here I think he's fine again. Just take on f4, and this structure is very hard to damage. So white can allow himself a lot of freedom. Maybe just play c3 to cover knight d4, and again, it should be quite a long game.
And I see some action in the Tari game and the Antipov game. If we want to take a look.
Yeah, let's go to Bird's Eye and see what's going on. Yeah, I think okay. Antipov is probably just doing his thing as he usually is in this position. So let's have a look at Aryan's game against Owen McCoy. Initially, this was a poison pawn French, but obviously there was no pawn taken on b2 because Aryan played a very rare line against it, and strangely enough, he is the one down on time, severely down on time, almost 2 minutes. And the position is absolutely chaotic. There's no other way to put it. f7 is hanging, but at the same time, yeah, he doesn't take it because he was afraid of some knight e4, queen f2 ideas. So he moves the knight back with tempo to defend. But Black can honestly, I think, just drop back his queen himself. He hasn't sacrificed any material, and even though the king is weird on d8, his other pieces are all pretty active. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I would probably play queen c7 here, or maybe even queen a7 might be an interesting move. It's not the usual square for the queen, but again, you have this knight e4, queen f2 idea.
Chaotic is a really good way to put it for this position. And it seemed like Owen McCoy was almost confused by his own move. I think no one really knows what's going on in the position there. But I don't know. It's pretty interesting. Does anyone in chat play the French? Because personally, I find the French very difficult to play against, very difficult to play. It's just a chaotic opening. The players who play it usually often like those very complex, crazy positions where no one knows what's going on.
Yeah, he played queen a7 and the computer likes it. But here, I'm not sure. King e7 would be the blitz move probably, but maybe he has to play something else. I'm honestly not sure. Maybe king e7 is the move though, because he wants to push this knight away. Right now he cannot take because of knight b5, and you would lose the queen. But king e7 does create this threat. So at the same time, after king e7, there might be queen g4. So if this queen g4 and white is creating big threats of his own, he still goes for it. But we see it might not be a good choice. And now queen g4 is a pretty straightforward one, especially if you know that it works as we do. He goes queen h5, hitting f7 immediately. That is also very strong. Yeah, given a double exclamation mark, you leave the knight hanging. And honestly, it's not obvious that you cannot take it, but probably you shouldn't take it. At the same time, what can you do with black? Maybe you have to kind of accept that something went wrong and play rook f8 and keep running with the king.
And this is actually a pretty smart play because now it's going to mean that most likely Owen McCoy will have to take time, maybe evening up that time difference a little bit, trying to think of what to do here. It's hard to make any sort of constellations in positions like this. I see a chatter put in pandemonium is a good way to describe this position, and I'd have to agree.
Yeah, here he will try to keep fishing for chances, but I think he messed up with the king e7 move, and we'll see how much he can create. We should probably go back to bird's eye and have a look at the games that we haven't seen so far.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, I think we should probably take a look at board 4, because this game might be around for a while. Jason Liu is playing against Luka Budisavljevic, and they were very fast to get to an endgame. In fact, if he trades rooks here, it might just be a single rook endgame. But white keeps the rooks on. So black is a pawn up, and without these pawns, it would be a very straightforward draw. This is also something both players are very much aware of. But this is why black is kind of trying to keep these pawns on, and white is trying to maybe exchange them or otherwise keep his pieces very active. But in general, this is, even though black's a pawn up, the chances of a draw are very, very high here. And both players still have a lot of time, so it shouldn't be a time pressure decision. I would honestly maybe just play b4, b5 to force it down. When you're down one pawn, and you can usually simplify to make the defense easier, this is what I would do here.
So we have some action going on in that board 1 that we probably want to look at in the Antipov versus Jason Moorfield game there. Under time pressure. And we said Mikhail Antipov was moving quickly. He definitely was.
Yeah, I think we can say that. We see he doesn't care about managing his time properly, as one would call it. He just has still 3 minutes versus basically 10 seconds for Jason Moorfield, and it hasn't hurt his position in the least. He's up 2 pawns, and he's technically winning. Yeah, rook b4 is a nice move, and King has to drop back, but he has nowhere to drop back to, because here this one picks up the bishop, and Antipov just won with 3 minutes.
On his clock. He pretty much used 2 minutes for the entire game, and that was his comeback from a difficult last round, but he just absolutely dominated that position and did it in his style with his own types of openings. Should we take a look at the remaining games? Is there anything here that kind of that you fancy?
I would say probably let's go to Old McCoy and Aryan Tari, because we left them off with a very crazy position, and it's still very much going on.
Yeah, absolutely, and they're both going to be under time pressure. Go ahead.
No, just as I said it, they are simplifying into an end game, which is still not straightforward, but I think this one is going to go Tari's way. And we see here he has a rook and a countless number of pawns, 4 pawns, rook and 4 pawns versus 2 knights. And what's more, these pawns are going to walk up the board, particularly the h pawn. Yeah, he doesn't even protect the g2 pawn. Probably black will take just to try it, but h6, rook g8. He will have the rook passively on h8, and it should be very much straightforward for white. Oh, he's going for some kind of tricks here. I'm not sure what they are yet. Yeah, a long castle is a very strong move. You have to be aware that even this late in the game, you can still castle to safety, and here the king is suddenly perfectly safe. So it's a very strong move, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he resigns here, because there's no play left to make. Long castle is an excellent choice, just to avoid any sort of miracle that could happen.
Should we take a look at some of the other boards there? As the final games are ending of this match, we only have 2 games left, and it looks like Mizzou has gotten the point in both of those games, both games 1 and 2. And now we have left boards 3 and 4. That rook in game we looked at, that's slightly favoring black there, a little bit difficult.
Yeah, it's still ongoing. So I'd suggest let's go to board 3.
Let's do it.
This was initially the Rui Lopez that was kind of slow to develop, and here Isik Chan, he got himself an extra pawn, but it's not really that much of a permanent thing, I think, because c6 is hanging, and he has to protect it with knight e5 at some point. But I don't know, some move like rook f2 should just give white enough activity to hold the game. But in blitz, of course, you can never know. I don't like this, because the rook end game can be very difficult. Black's king comes in first, and all of these pawns are suddenly very much protected. With the knight on d4, he had play against his pawn, but now that's no longer the case. So black can just slowly improve his pieces, maybe push g5, h5, and eventually the dream is to play king e5, c5, d4. And the downside of these rook endgame positions is that white cannot really get counterplay anymore unless black messes up. Yeah, you see, he just plays c5 and d4. This is a very straightforward one.
This is like the nightmare position to be in, having to defend one of these. But also, it's important to note, Anish is actually a B team player that got moved up, subbed up to the top team for this round. So he's been doing well, fighting, holding his own. But this is kind of a difficult position. I feel like this is the position I get a lot in tournaments, having to defend these really tough end games, and no one really likes it. But it's an important part of chess.
Especially when you are, let's say, playing up a lot, you have to kind of give yourself the chance to score points. And in this kind of end game, the stronger player will never get bored or anything. He will always be there pushing, and it's very hard to score points from these situations.
Yeah, it's a bit difficult, but anything can happen. And I'm a huge proponent of playing up, which we see Anish is doing right now, even though these are kind of a little bit painful positions there. But both of the last games are in these rook end games, and both players are really fighting. Even though the match is technically over, these tiebreak points are important for both teams.
Yeah, maybe we should go back to board 4 because I think this one will be over pretty fast. There's just not much counterplay left. So let's go to bird's eye. It's still ongoing, and see. Oh, I think here we can see a lot of nice things in rook endgame suddenly, which is exciting for me. Maybe not so much for everyone else, but
No, do tell us. Tell us about your rook end games, Alex.
you see how black's pawn moved up from a6 to b5, and now suddenly white has to passively protect his pawn on b4. And now he trades down to a pawn endgame and wins now. But even so, the main difference was that this pawn could only be defended passively, and this is so important in rook endgames. Whenever you have to defend passively, usually things go wrong. Sometimes even it's better to just give a pawn instead of doing that. Yeah, we can see Luca being all content with himself.
He does look very content with himself, and honestly, just great score for Mizzou so far. And we have this final game where it looks like Ija Khan is going to be taking it. And you said that he scored his GM title against you? Like he got his GM title in a game against you?
He got a GM title by playing against me. Fortunately, he did not beat me for it, but made a draw. But still, it was the game that secured his last norm. It was in the U.S. Masters in Charlotte. And he had a very successful event there, and he also had a very, very successful event in St. Louis right after. So he crossed 2,500 easily, and he's on his way up from the last couple of events.
Absolutely, and he's been playing very, very well. And we see that Mizzou was absolutely dominating this match. They dominated this round, dominating this match. And honestly, they've just been doing very well so far. So we're going to take a look at the score. It was 13.5 against 2.5. As we see, it was just, I think, a pretty much clean sweep this round. Were there any games that kind of surprised you there?
Let's see. From this round, I mean, honestly, Antipov's display was very nice. That he was just kind of unchained, unburdened by everything. He was just playing his game instantly, and it worked out very nicely. Some people play like this all the time, but I think for him, you could see he just switched it up for the last round after he lost the game. So he felt that this one is very nice for him to do, and I found that impressive this round.
Yeah, so this was just an absolute killer performance by Mizzou, but stick with us. We're going to see Athens versus SLU coming up next. Stay here. We'll be right back.
My name is Kelly Henry, and I work in recruiting at SIG. Our founders' love for the quantitative side of strategy games is still the foundation of our business, our culture, and our education today. We have board game nights, competitive chess teams, and
Hello everyone, welcome back to the 2025 spring season of the CCL. It's been a very exciting first match. Susquehanna is our sponsor, and they know the importance of problem solving and how to keep their employees' minds nimble. Take a look at how important game theory is to the company culture.
My name is Ella Papanek, and I'm a quantitative sports trader here at SIG. I started playing chess when I was 8 years old. My brother taught me, and I grew up very close to Union Square Park and Washington Square Park in New York City, and so I used to go and play with the people there in the parks. Chess players are very good decision makers. They're constantly reasoning about the hypothetical paths that the game could take. They're also very good at thinking about what their opponent is thinking and integrating that into their decision-making process.
My name is Jerry Yang. I'm a macro analyst here at SIG. I discovered chess pretty much after watching Queen's Gambit. I was like, this is an awesome game. The strategy and the calculation is really what I think makes the game beautiful, where every time you're asking yourself that question of, hey, I'm making this move, and what possible moves might they do in response? And then zooming back out to yourself, I think is really like what makes chess a wonderful game.
In chess, you often face situations where you have to make decisions under time pressure, and so you're not going to be able to realistically assess all of the options, but you still have to think through what matters and what doesn't matter and make a decision off of that, which is a common thing that I have to do in trading.
I do use that reciprocal thinking on my day-to-day, where I'm asking myself that question of, hey, what are other people going to do in stock markets and other markets, etc. I need to be extremely cognizant of all of these other pieces on the metaphorical chessboard in order to distill that into one, hey, like this is the driving narrative, this is what's going to happen, and this is what's important for trading.
Welcome back to Collegiate Chess League. I'm your host, Jules Gambit. This is my co-host, Grandmaster Alexander Donchenko, and we are here today for the second of the matchups. This is Athens versus SLU. So we have a lot of exciting things planned here, and I think you're probably pretty familiar with these players, right, Alex?
I would say, again, I'm more familiar with the SLU team simply because I see them more often on the tournament circuit. But I have heard some players from Athens as well, so I think we should take a look at them.
Absolutely. We'll take a look at some of these players. Do you want to tell us a little about them? Let's go through the lineup.
Yeah, so starting with Athens, I think the first two boards I regularly see in European tournaments, well, somewhat regularly. So the players are Dimitris Alexiakis for board 1, Giannis Kalogeris, board 2, both are international masters, and then FIDE Masters Grigoris Drakoulakos on board 3, and FIDE Master Nicolas Kutlas on board 4. Yeah, this is Athens lineup. And for St. Louis, we have Grandmasters Aryan Chopra on board 1, then Grandmaster Viktor Gazik on board 2, Nicolosi Kacharava on board 3, and Shedev Oberoi on board 4. I believe the first three boards there I have played against and know them at least somewhat. Shedev Oberoi is new to me, but maybe you know him as a player from the CCL.
Yes, absolutely. He's one of our favorites here at the CCL because he always has the best expressions. So we'll keep a close eye on that when he's playing. And we see all the players getting ready here. Always funny to see their setups and their lightings. I know that Shelev is where he's been every season. We see a lot of repeat spots. But as we see, it seems like SLU has the slight rating advantage here, but Athens is still a very strong team. So SLU is expected to win, but this is definitely one of those matches where upsets can happen.
Yeah, I have to agree on this one, and we'll see. Well, the Greek team is, let's say, it's really Greek, so people probably know each other well, and they have played together, I assume, in this setting or maybe in other settings as well, and this can also give a boost to team morale. So we'll see, maybe that will work in their favor.
That's true. We have seen the teams that hang out a lot together tend to have good team morale there. And the games have started here. We have our game from I am Demetrius Alexis, who looks like he is bathed in darkness. And then, of course, Shelov there. But what
Yeah,
that camera is very ominous.
this might be the intro to some horror movie, eh?
We're gonna see like a light come from the darkness over him.
But Sheriff Oberoi is playing a little bit of a tricky move order here, and then in general, this modern setup, it's usually what with G6 Bishop G7, it's what higher rated players try to play to avoid any theory and get a fighting game. But nowadays, even that has been very well analyzed, and this setup of Bishop D3 and what Oberoi is playing, it's pretty straightforward. He might go Queen E2 here in long castle, or maybe Queen D2, depending on what he wants to do. I think White will have some very good activity, even though this pawn is isolated, but it's usually not the most important feature of the position. And his piece activity usually compensates for it, maybe even more than compensates. We'll have to see how that one goes.
Wait, was this not an accelerated London?
I don't know what accelerated London means,
Or like
but
a
this was
Jababa London?
D4. Yeah, it was one D4 knight C3, and then Black just didn't go D5 and it transposed. So I kind of still claim it as a modern, no matter the move order. Yeah, Queen E2 played, and sorry for this one. And now long castle will follow, and White has a pretty active position. Might not be objectively better, but it is easy to play.
Yeah, and Shelov is our resident Jababa London player. He's known for playing this every single game, every single round. So when people play against him, they tend to prepare it, but he knows it inside and out. But it looks like we're getting a slightly different structure than what he's used to. Should we take a look at some of the other boards?
Yeah, let's go see what else is going on. And let's see which position strikes me. Oh, I see some interesting moves being played in the Kutlas versus Chopra game on board 4. So let's maybe go to this one.
All right, happy to. And yeah, it's gonna be an interesting match. I can already see it. I'm also laughing at some of the comments made. Demetrius merely adopted the dark Shelov, was born into it, molded by it. Very poetic, Brody. Thank you. But it is true. So we're gonna see. So can you tell us a little bit about what opening this came out of?
This was definitely a King's Indian. I would know because I like to play it occasionally as well. And we see quite original idea here. Once White closes the center with D5, Black likes to exchange this bishop here because it is stuck behind the pawns. So he played H5 with the idea to play Bishop H6 at a good moment. And he might even do this now, I'm not sure. Or he might just play Queen E7 first. But the Bishop H6 idea is very, very much part of his plan. Yeah, he does it now. And White is objectively doing quite well, usually, whenever, well, on almost any King's Indian nowadays. But it's still very hard to develop a plan, especially when Black got rid of this passive bishop. And it's not so clear if White should play for A3, B4, or if he can regroup this knight somewhere and maybe play for G4. But he just goes short castle, and here Black can play with King F8, King G7, and it's going to be a slow positional game, but I usually like these positions for Black. So I think it's a good opening choice.
Yeah, we have some King's Indian fans here. But I see a comment asking about Gazik. He is a transfer from UT Rio Grande, so that's probably why you're seeing that he was playing for them before. But yes, I've actually, so my roommate, other Alexandra, she was playing the King's Indian defense for a while, and said it was almost a little bit like hazing, that you have to go through these positions, have a lot of these tough positions before you kind of understand what's going on, that it can be very difficult for people to play. Would you kind of agree with that?
Yes, especially since you again, you have your typical ideas and you can apply them. As I said, King F8, King G7 is what I would do. But here, White played knight E1. I would have maybe played knight G5, and F4 is coming very, very strongly. So it's a mix between concrete ideas and just pure calculation, and it's hard to balance. And you just need sometimes experience to quickly decide what you can afford to do. And here, this knight E1 kind of lost a little bit of momentum here. Black should be fine. But the f4 idea is still very much on the table.
By the way, we have a vote in chat. Type Athens W or SLU W to see who you're or say who you're rooting for. I know we used to do a lot of channel points for these predictions, and I actually just looked at my channel points, and I have 129 channel points, which means I lost all of my channel points on these predictions last year as the commentator. So do with that what you will. But yeah, it's always good to say who you're rooting for. A lot of fun here, and as we said, Athens is in fact the underdog here, but they definitely have good chances. They have good team morale. We'll see how that goes.
We should maybe go to bird's eye and see what's going on in the match.
All right, let's take a look.
Yeah. All games are still ongoing and still, I think, very much in contention. But I think we should maybe go to board 2. There might be something happening that I was not expecting too much.
Yeah, I'm happy to take a look there. So this is the game with Kalieris against Nicolas Checa. And tell us what's going on.
I mean, this is an endgame where, first of all, Black has the bishop pair, even though, of course, these bishops will eventually get exchanged, I would assume. But Black's advantage is that all his pieces are suddenly very, very active. This knight on d3, it's very, very strong. It can sometimes even go back here and maybe to c4. And Black is just doing very well in general. I'm not sure. He cannot take here because of knight f1 and kicking the rook away from the knight. But still, it's a very good endgame to have. And I think White has to really watch out here to not be in big trouble. And I played Nicolas Checa very, very recently, and he's generally a very solid player, very well prepared. So getting him on the defensive is not an easy task.
Yeah, and it seems that Athens is also in it to win it. I know they had a bit of a tougher season last time, had some matches that could have gone either way. But this would be a huge upset if Athens is able to beat SLU. It'll be tough.
Also, pay attention to how this pawn has been hanging for the last 5 moves, perhaps, but people are just ignoring it because they're creating bigger threats on both sides. And here, Black's knight is hanging right now, but once it moves away, for example, knight e5, bishop h3 is going to be a bigger threat. So White again doesn't have time to take the pawn, and Black will probably not have time to play b6. So we are just kind of ignoring it. Oh, he goes for something very radical, and apparently it's a good move. Yeah, we're giving a double exclamation mark. But let's see. If the idea is, of course, if takes, then rook g2, king h1, and probably rook g8. And he's trying to create some very direct threats, but I'm not sure if he can manage. Because here, White can just play... First of all, White can also take on d5 first, but he could also play knight bd2. And Black is down a piece, but he's not really mating. He just has kind of a not direct initiative for it. It's very, very hard to play for both sides, obviously. But when it comes down to it, White would have an extra piece. So... if I would always kind of take the piece here if I know that I'm not getting mated. And here it's unlikely.
Yeah, and I guess the king cannot walk up and make any additional threats right now, but it does look very, very scary for Nicolosi.
Yeah, it does. It's well, this is definitely a game that can go either way. But I think we should go back and take a look at something else, because there might be some big developments going on right now.
Yeah, we can take a look. By the way, there is a prediction in chat for who will win SLU versus Athens. Put your channel points on the line. I've put mine and lost them all, so we'll try to be building them up a little bit this season. But the commentators, in fact, do the predictions as well. I think Ben has a great score for that. He's probably holds the world record for channel points there. But are there any games here that you find particularly interesting?
I think we should take a look at board 3. We haven't done it justice so far. And we really should, because it's a very interesting position. We see here that Gazik is playing Black against Grigorios Drakulakos, who I don't know as a player, but he seems to be really going for it. Well, honestly, they both are. As we can see, White has advanced his pawns all the way up the board. Now, on the downside, the downside is that the king is relatively safe here because there are no open files. All of this is blockaded, and now black will try to take over with pushing his h pawn and generally just attacking the knight on h4. Yeah, he took it straight up, and I think that this a6 move might have really hurt him because the only chance to really create play is to open any kind of files, and here it might already be too late for it.
Yeah, it looks really tough. Whenever you get these kind of structures and you see them close it up, you almost feel a sigh of relief because you no longer have to calculate anything on that side. And now he can kind of just focus on the attack.
Exactly. Oh, knight e5 is very nice. He moves the knight out of the way, and if bishop d8, knight f3 wins the queen back with check because the pawn is pinned. And I think that this is just going to be a win for black.
Yeah, and is there any good way to avoid that?
There's also a very nice idea.
Go ahead.
There's a very nice idea. Whenever white protects it with queen f4 or something, there was a queen h4 tactic, also simplifying. That's why he has to go for the queen exchange like this, but it won't be much of a difference. Yeah, knight f3 and knight takes h4 just wins a piece.
All right, and that might be over, yeah?
And it's not completely yet because its king is still not 100% safe, but in fact, it might be quite tricky in practice. Yeah, he sees suddenly he plays one move and anything can happen again because he has his bishop f1 to keep everything super solid, and suddenly we have a game on our hands and 25 seconds each. This could be an upset for all I know. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we have a result on the last board. We see that SLU had a victory on the last board, but let's stick with this game because this is going to get spicy exactly with 10 seconds on the line. Anything can happen.
We need to protect g2 here. It's not easy to. Queen h3 is a hard move. You could easily play like g3, and which is probably a big mistake, but he has to find queen h3. No, okay, this one might work. It's a good idea because bishop g2, rook g3 looked very scary, but yeah, they're just playing below 10 seconds now, and whoever blunders last is going to lose.
Which is blitz for you. And also you have to be a little bit worried about any of these impositions, but I really like that move, doubling up the rooks, creating more threats, and yeah, queen e5 seemed very natural, but
probably just something like this. Yeah, f3, and if h3, g4, this is what I would have played, and apparently it loses, so here we go. But and now h2, what? I thought, but rook, everything is hanging right now, and people are playing the weirdest moves, and this is just getting mated. This is over. Yeah.
And there was a checkmate there, but that was definitely one worth looking over more. But when everything's hanging, sometimes it's just hard to see any sort of follow-up. And as you said, it's just the person who makes the blunder last.
Yeah, and here we saw that basically at 10 seconds. I have to give credit to Viktor Gazik, though. He stayed on those 10 seconds. He stayed on those 10 seconds, and he used a couple of seconds whenever he wanted to calculate a line, because when you physically have to move, it doesn't matter if you want to calculate something, you can't. You have to move. And yeah, he kept himself those 10 seconds, however little that is, and it worked out nicely.
It did, and we're going to see a close match so far. Athens 1.5 to 2.5 St. Louis. Demetrius took a draw. Aryan won his game. Ian Kaligaris won his game. Viktor Gazik won his game as well. And then the boards 3 for both teams, Gregorius and Nicolosi, both lost their games, as well as Nicholas lost his game from Athens, while Shelev got a draw against the board 1. So good result for Shelev there. But this is a very close match so far. Maybe, I mean, this is again how the Mizzou-Virginia match started, so anything can happen, but is there a chance Athens could come back?
There absolutely is, I would say, yes. We saw a lot of close games, and honestly, I'm very impressed with Ioannis Kalogeris, the way he played this game against Kacharava, and he scored the win for Athens. I think he might be a player to watch out for.
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility. Do you want to take us through this round 2 lineup?
Yeah, let's see. Round 2, we will have Nicolosi Kacharava playing. Dimitrios Alexiakis with white playing against Nicolosi Kacharava. Then we'll have Ioannis Kalogeris with white against Shelev Oberoi. And then we'll have Aryan Chopra for the SLU team with white against Grigorios Drakoulakos. And Viktor Gazik also for SLU with white against Nikolaos Kutlas. So I think this is going to be a very contested match, and I think it will come down to the wire, honestly.
And we see a shell of hydrating there. I just have to say, there's something about playing chess that makes you want to drink a lot of water. Like, I always go through like 4 bottles every single classical game. I think it's probably the stress and the nerves there. And again, we're seeing Demetrius bathed in darkness there. I really do like this. I think Joe put in the chat cinema.
Yeah, it certainly gives him an intimidating aura. Yeah? If his opponent looks at his camera, then he'll know this one is not messing around.
Absolutely.
Somehow we still ended up in a King's Indian structure, even though this was a Rui Lopez. So sometimes this happens when you play d5 and get basically the same structure, but here white exchanged the light squared bishops, and this might be still very much a theoretical position. And the exchange of light squared bishops is always very tricky in this kind of position, because in general, when you see that white has pawns on light squares, you'll think he wants to exchange a bishop that's usually passive here, but it's never really that straightforward with the King's Indian. And here black might be doing fine because his pieces have much more space to maneuver because one of his pieces is exchanged. So it's a pretty hard call. I think this again, I would always prefer black in these positions, but it's of course still anyone's game. I have to say though, using up time that early might not be a very good sign for Alexiakis, because this is going to be a complicated game. You can already tell there's going to be a lot of difficult choices to make, and he's down 1.5 minutes out of the opening.
Yeah, that is not where you want to be, especially with, as you said, these kind of complicated openings. I've heard a lot of people don't like playing against the King's Indian defense. Perhaps this could be a reason for some of the time there. But yeah, do you want to take a look at some of the other games?
Yeah, let's do this. This one is going to be some kind of maneuvering game, either fast or slow, we don't know. But
yeah, I think go ahead.
I think I would probably go to the board 3 game between Aryan Chopra and Grigorios Drakoulakos.
All right.
Because I just wanted to point out that this is very much a similar structure to the game that we saw between who was it? I know that Antipov played with black here and got into trouble pretty quickly in the match before. Where we had this exact structure, and white was starting to maneuver and won the pawn on b7. But this is how it usually goes when neither side takes a big risk, and white will play knight c4, then maybe bishop e3 or even knight e3, and maneuver to play f4. And black is kind of trying to set up d5 in a safe way. Yeah, here he's ready for it. Yeah, if it takes, knight takes, and you cover the e5 pawn. But it's kind of a King's Indian in reverse, but it's not a closed position, and usually the space advantage counts for something here. These are usually easier to play for the side that has the space advantage. Just play some rook e8 or rook e8.
Yeah, because it does seem like
I like it.
A lot
Yeah.
of moves. Yeah, it does seem
I like
white
black's
does
position.
a
I
lot
think
of
he's doing nicely.
Yeah, and I don't know, if you're white, how do you kind of get more space? Do you try to exchange pieces? Do you try to maneuver in a certain way, or is it just something you kind of have to suffer through till your opponent makes a mistake?
I think with this one, you just accept that you will have less space. It's the premise of the opening in a way, but you play around the space you have with moves like this, or maybe knight d2, knight e4. There are certain ideas, and it's not so easy for, in this case, black, usually white with colored reverse, to keep control of the position. And you're kind of prodding him here and there to try to create weaknesses, while all of your pieces, while you have less space, it's easier to see where your pieces belong. And this knight belongs on c4. This bishop belongs on g2. This rook belongs on e1. And with the rest of the pieces, you can usually figure it out. So your position might not be great, but it is very much a comfortable position to play still.
Yeah, and it might be helpful in Bliss to have to take less time on that there. Do we want to check out Bird's Eye View for a little bit? Just get a feel for the games?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, and it all seems pretty even so far. As well, I would like to point out that the score is pretty even, 1.5 to 2.5. I saw someone in chat say RIP my channel points. There is no RIP to your channel points just yet. Literally anything can happen. We're still on round 2, and we've seen some major upsets. We've seen people come back, and this is not that big of a point difference. It just takes one win basically to even that up. Also, it seems like there's a lot of life in all of these games.
That's true. Yeah, board 1 is kind of developing slowly right now. So I would suggest let's go to board 4. I think there's a very interesting position on the board, and it's not really standard in any way. So you don't get to see it often.
Yeah, those non-standard positions kind of kill you sometimes. Because especially sometimes I feel as a player, I keep looking for like tactics I've seen before, positional moves I've seen before. But when a structure doesn't resemble anything else, you kind of just have to invent something from scratch, it feels like a lot of times.
Yeah. Now, if you see, black is went g5, h5, and I believe this was a Sicilian, because I know that sometimes in a Sicilian, when white delays opening the center, black can try to go for really aggressive things like this. And here, I think it worked out pretty well for him, because at least for the moment, d4 wouldn't work because of g4, and the center kind of collapses for white. So it's very hard to play for both, because the ideas aren't straightforward. Black usually would want to attack if he's given the chance, with maybe even hg, queen h6, but sometimes he also just plays very differently. He just kind of plays g4, and then he closes it up because he has gained some other advantage. This is why both players are taking a lot of time here. I think we're maybe 10 moves in, and they are both down below 3 minutes.
Yeah, they're playing like me there with that time management. Was this a Dragendorf? I would be very curious, like the combination of Dragon Nydorf, some as you said, weird Sicilian, but it looks like there is some action going on there, and maybe black does have a sort of attack. And we saw what you suggested, or the move you were looking at, g4.
Yeah, there are several lines this could come from. Usually when white drops back the bishop, some bishop b5, and then back, kind of using up moves to allow for black to play this. g4 is a very interesting choice, because I would think that this is a very big weakness usually, and I'd seriously consider a move like h3 here to kind of isolate it, to not allow white to play h3. The problem is then white will go d4, and I'll have to deal with this weakness here. But he goes knight e5 safely, and now white will have time to play h3 if he wants to. But he has secured the d4 square, and suddenly the position becomes very static. Yeah, this is not a pawn break that will ever happen. This is also not a pawn break that is likely to happen. So we'll get some maneuvering stage here.
All right, that is very interesting, and seeing what will happen there. If we want to go back to bird's eye view, see where the action is. Okay, and taking a look at those positions, we were just looking at that board 4. Looks like we have an endgame on Shelv's board, and kind of an interesting position on that board 1 with Nicolosi versus Alexius, but open to whichever you feel.
Let's see. Yeah, I think honestly, I would like to take a look at the endgame on board 2.
Yeah.
If nothing else, then because black is short on time and we might not get a chance to look at it afterwards.
We'll look at that in a second, but we want to point out, is Aryan missing? What is going on there? Where did the player go in board 3? Mm-hmm. What happened? Where did he go? Did he go to the bathroom?
He's
just gone. Yeah, he's just missing. Yeah. And his time is ticking down too. I wonder what happened there. And you see that Gregorius is a little confused.
this is not normal. I mean, he has been playing playing very well. He got a slight advantage, and now he's just absent.
Oh, and we have news in our ear here. There was a fire alarm in his dorm. I remember when that would happen.
Oh,
I've had streams before where there's just like a fire alarm in their dorm, and then all of a sudden, like you hear screeching on stream, and you just have to leave. So we'll see what happens there, what that's gonna amount to. But he has to follow the rules, so good on him for doing that. In the meantime, we'll go back to the games we were looking at. But at least we
this is
solved the
very
mystery.
unfortunate. I know far from every chess player would have gotten up from the board there.
Well, I mean, at some point you have to protect yourself from those dorm fires, so we do appreciate that. Yeah, we can still. Yeah, it looks like it might be worth looking at the first game as well. But if there are some other games that you're looking at, Shelv's game is also interesting. The last game, are there any in particular you like?
No, I think board one is a good one to go to. Oh, I think that might have been just a huge blunder might have just happened there.
Show us it. Yeah.
No, but it might also be that I'm not sure. I was just looking at the eval bar, but here, of course, now after the exchange of queens, there's nothing left to do. Well, white has 2 rooks and black has 0 rooks, so that should be all she wrote. Yeah.
All you need to know. 0 rooks versus 2 rooks. More than enough.
Yeah. Now he can just. Yeah, he just gave up one of the rooks for a knight, and this is a very easy technical win. So this one is a goner.
All right, and maybe we should go to that last board because we see that there's some time trouble going on there, and usually some stuff happens when you're under time trouble.
Well, the time trouble is pretty one-sided at the moment, but let's see how it develops. Yeah. We have we have Victor Gazik, who, as I said, not many pawn breaks happened, and now black played a c4 break with 10 seconds, which is either very confident or very, very risky. And as we see, the computer doesn't like it here. So it's the kind of again, in time pressure, you sometimes feel the need you have to do something because the game isn't going your way, and then whatever you're doing, you don't have the time to make it work properly.
Yeah.
So
and
here,
seems...
probably, yeah,
Go ahead.
white can just he picks up the g5 pawn, and this king is surprisingly safe. If I take on h4, I can always play king h2, bishop g3, and protect myself.
Yeah, protect
this is
yourself
quite desperate.
before
I
you
think.
wreck yourself.
Yeah, I think bishop takes d8 should just work for white, and he has 40 seconds, but only. But it's all the time in the world that he needs. So he just takes it. Now this one is also pinned. And there are probably many moves that are winning by now, but I would like something like queen c2. I think.
Yeah, and it seems that Athens has taken the lead so far. So we have quite a switch there. So we'll see what happens again with that game with the fire alarm. We had a kind of fire alarm gambit going on here, but this is the final game of this round.
Yeah, it's not as easy as I thought. Yeah, he plays c5, and now queen h3 might save the game.
Yeah, it looks like it could be a little bit
might even do more than that. We'll see. Okay, no, probably not. He just goes king f1, and now the king runs out. He had to play h3 and give check from here, but now the king kind of manages to run away via d2 c2. And the pawn on d6 should win the game, but against the queen, it's never very, very simple. So he will blockade it, but it's not a permanent solution. Or maybe he won't. He decides not to.
Well, if your king can escape, yeah, then you'll get that really nice pawn that's going to promote.
Yeah, but now he just plays king c2 and he covers the promotion square. This is a win for white.
And that was really, really good there. Yeah, takes, and you're just up a whole rook. GG's, we see it. Victor Gajic won the game, evening the score a little bit there. And yeah, I'm really interested to see what will happen there with the fire alarm gambit. But so far, that point was pretty crucial because it looks like Athens has managed to come back and take a small lead against St. Louis.
Yeah, true. Even without that Aryan Chopra game being kind of aborted midway, it's still a very very good round, and they just took the lead. So suddenly it's all flipped on its head.
Yeah, so we'll take a look at that. Our round 2 was quite dramatic. We have the first for Demetrius Alexius with 1.5 points out of 2, Aryan Chopra 1 out of 2, Caligaris 2 out of 2, Victor Gajic also 2 out of 2. Board 2s are killing it. Then we have Gregorius 1 out of 2, Nicolosi is 0 out of 2, and then Kutlas is 0 out of 2, Shelev is 0.5 point out of 2. We're going to see what happens with our round 3, but for now we're going to break. Stay with us. We will be right back. Welcome back, everyone, to Collegiate Chess League. We have had a very exciting first 2 rounds going into these last final rounds. We also have one player who experienced a fire alarm, so we're going to get to see if they'll be back because that is a super crucial point. Maybe we'll see an upset with Athens and SLU. What do you think?
Yeah, it was certainly dramatic in some way. So let's see how this one develops. But you have to say, even without this game, Athens just really hit back hard in the second round. So it's anyone's guess how the last 2 rounds are going to go. It's going to come down to nerves and to time management. All the small things can make a difference here.
No, absolutely. And I know St. Louis, especially if they're down a player, that could affect morale. I also know that they have some new players transfers. The captain is currently playing over the board. So there's a lot of exciting things that we're going to be seeing here in round 3 of 4. We're going to see Demetrius Alexis against Viktor Gajic, Kalgaris against Aryan Chopra, Gregorius against Shelev, and then Nicholas against Nicolosi. So some exciting matchups. Any in particular you're excited for?
I mean, you have to say the one we are probably both most excited for is Aryan Chopra's game, if it's going to be played in a normal fashion. Yeah, if he's back and he can play and focus again, then I think St. Louis still very much has a chance to turn this around.
Yeah, I mean, looks like he's not back, but we might see a Magnus situation where he like runs in with like 2 minutes on the clock. It's likely because that's pretty much what he has to do. Otherwise, it would be pretty difficult. And I don't think he can just tune in from his phone because they have to do some fair play checks. So he's gonna have to hope the alarm ends soon. I just know he's talking with his RA, resident assistant, to try to get this alarm to move faster. But we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, and until then, we can have a look at the games that are going on. For now, board 1, Viktor Gajic against Demetrius Alexiakis. This is a very original way to combat the Sicilian with this knight c3, knight f3. I think Viktor Gajic, he might honestly, again, get some kind of King's Indian structure here if he goes knight e2 or maybe even knight b1, I'm not sure. He might also be considering bishop b5 to get this bishop out because eventually, yeah, that's what he plays, because eventually the pawn will go to d3. After any move like bishop d7, he would trade and then move the knight back and play d3. So the bishop doesn't have a role anymore, and he likes to exchange it. Of course, this is not critical in an objective sense. Black has many good setups, but it's a good system to try and play. And I think it's again going to be a kind of slower game where he'll try to amass his forces on the king's side and get some initiative there.
Yeah, and I mean, St. Louis is going to need all the points they can get if they're going to be playing down a man, especially. They need to almost sweep. But we'll see. Again, I'm hoping that we get some sort of Aryan Chopra come back with him running into the room. But I know all of the games have started so far.
If you can look at this move, d3. He sacrifices a pawn. Well, okay, not really sacrifice, but he gives it. I think White will play d4 now. And it's an interesting idea to not allow for any standard development. And the issue with these pawns isn't even so much that one of them is hanging, but that you have to move both of them out of the way to develop this bishop, which ideally would want to go to e3 or d2. And it's creating some early pressure on Gajic. We'll see how he handles it.
Also, I'd be a little afraid of d4. Like, if you take back with a knight, maybe there's some sort of annoying pin going on there with bishop c5 or any of the sort. Yeah, it does seem like this lack of development for Black might be a little bit difficult, but perhaps if they can just consolidate, they will have what they want.
Yeah. All right. I suggest let's go to bird's eye view and see how the other games are starting.
Yeah, let's take a look.
We see that board 2 has no moves played yet. I'm not sure if the clocks are running there. I would assume they are not. So let's just go to board 3 for now, which is the game between Grigorios Drakoulakos and Shelev Oberoi.
All right, taking a sec there. And we've talked before about how Shelev has one of our favorite facial expressions of any of the players. He's very expressive, especially when he likes a position or doesn't like a position. And he's like completely locked in right now. Like, yeah, you can just see the focus.
You can see that this was a more or less standard Rossolimo where white took on c6. And usually the plans are very well known. White has this a3, b4 idea. Black has to kind of mitigate the damage here and try to play for f5. He does it immediately here. And games can become very complicated, very complex, fast. For example, here, often it's even an idea to sacrifice the pawn with something like this, or the pawn on c5 is hanging right now, but neither side is really caring too much. Black has a threat of e4 right now. It's all very concrete chess. You play it move by move, and you have to kind of go along with your plans in the most convenient way possible.
Yeah, and if we see e4 there, as you can see, the knight on c3 is hanging, so there's a lot of threats that need to be defended against here. And not a lot of incredibly easy ways to defend. Maybe you could try to move your bishop back to d2, defending a little bit, but even that might run into some stuff. So you have to be a little bit careful. You also are highlighting maybe like queen d2.
Yeah, I think queen d2 is a possible move, but it is you have to believe that it works. Maybe even queen e1. Queen e1, I think, was an interesting one. Yeah, because here we see the knight. It was really well placed. I would have played queen e1 instead of knight d2, and it's kind of about keeping causing the least amount of damage to your position. And this move, it doesn't really. It's not a move you want to play if you can avoid it. So here white will have to regroup in some better way. Here e4 might still be a move, by the way, because you have to defend the knight, and then I can go f4 with tempo. It's in blitz especially, it's a very strong option to consider always.
That seems like a huge threat, and Shelv's got to be having a little bit of fun in this position. Again, like we said, it's important for SLU to be scoring some points here. So this is exactly what he needs to be doing. And I'm wondering if he's just calculating what you're suggesting. This e4, can we look at that a little? This e4, then you have to somehow deal with the knight, and then all the pawns are coming in.
Yeah, for example, queen e1 to defend it, and something like f4, bishop d2, knight d4, all of the active moves that are playing themselves basically. And if this works, then we can see that it can become very dangerous very quickly.
Yeah, let's take a look at Bird Eye, because I see something kind of interesting happened. We see that Aryan Chopra returned with 10 seconds on his clock, 10 seconds to go, and they agreed to a draw, which I think is just very strong sportsmanship from Caliaris here, who knows that his opponent, was gone for reasons out of his control. And instead of making him play with 10 seconds on the clock, which would be almost a guaranteed win, he agreed to a draw. So we see it there. And I think that is a strong display of sportsmanship there. But it also means that, St. Louis still has to get back their points somehow.
Yeah. If this is what happened, then okay, let's say this is a player's choice, and he has to weigh the options he has. For now, anyway, this game is let's say it's over, and then we assume that Aryan Chopra is going to be back for the last round. So until then, I think we can take a look at the games that are going on this round, and probably let's go to the last board 4, where Nikolaos Kutlas is playing Nicolosi Kacherava, and they are having a pretty, let's say, common position, but nonetheless, it is very interesting. This kind of structure usually comes from some kind of open Ruy Lopez, but also from many other Ruy Lopez positions. And here, white very atypically is pushing everything on the queen side. This kind of pawn pushes is not what you usually see. Usually white will try to play some knight bd2, rook e1, knight f1, and go for a different kind of plan. But here, apparently, when the position arrived, he already had the pawns up front, and he's trying to make the most of it.
Yeah, you might as well. But I'm wondering what's going to happen there. And Nicolosi, I know, is going to really want to be clutching this win. So if he can get that win, that would be huge for St. Louis. But also Athens seems to be doing pretty decently here as well.
I think the biggest advantage of Nicolosi's position is, yet again, not to be found on the board, but on the clock. because him being up 1 minute is honestly the only good thing in a blitz game that I can see. Because even if his position is objectively fine, you have to defend against so many ideas here with black that it becomes very awkward. Apart from the obvious a takes b7, you always have to watch out for ef, and the bishop is creating pressure here, while black doesn't have direct threats that you have to always watch out for with white. So practically speaking, I think white has the advantage here.
Yeah, that's interesting to kind of allow that isolated queen pawn, but you have so many threats it doesn't really matter. And we see takes a6.
Yeah, this one is going to happen. And here again, this pawn on c6, it will probably be won back at some point, but it's not easy to see how to do it immediately. And in a blitz game, if you can't do something immediately, then effectively you cannot do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he played rook f.
Oh, it seems that
Yeah.
there was a tactic there instead that you were highlighting. But
Yeah, there was a tactic, but even here, as long as this pawn remains on the board, anything can still happen. Maybe even knight e5 is a good move. I don't know. It's gonna be honestly anyone's game at this point.
Yeah, and just to highlight, the knight cannot take it. Could not take before because there was an issue with the rook, but now things are a little bit more calm. Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be a little bit tough to defend that c pawn, no?
Yeah, he probably just played ef by hand. It's kind of a fast move to make, but it might have honestly done some damage to his position.
I see some heat on the other boards if we wanna take a look at bird's eye view.
Yeah. Oh, I believe we kind of have to go to board 3 at this point.
We have to see what happened there. I think we're gonna need to rewind a move or two. Okay, so it looks like there's just a massive blunder. Let's take a look at this.
I think this is still my analysis board. I'm not sure how to correct that at this point.
Yeah, no worries. I'm seeing the live one there, but we can also see this in bird's eye view if needed.
Yeah, I think we should just be looking at it from bird's eye view for now. And let's see, because I can see that both kings aren't feeling too safe, even though it's an endgame. And
Shelov was just completely winning, but look at that time, 5 seconds to 1 minute and 47 seconds. No wonder a blunder occurred because that time is so difficult.
Yeah, no, and it's also like the kind of the queen knight is just apart from being objectively pretty strong, the knight is just, in some people consider it superior to the bishop in blitz, and here you see sometimes why. It's just much more comfortable to play with, and here he's just winning the queen tactically. Wait, he didn't see it? Oh no, maybe it was me who missed something there, but.
Yeah,
but still, the knight is just so in control here. You're up just one pawn, but he's also down on time, and I don't think there's much to do here. White can just take all the time he needs.
And the king is so open, you can kind of do whatever, and you have to watch out for any sort of knight tricks with like a discovered attack on the queen. Yeah, and then you have that beautiful pawn on the c file. You are much more secure.
Yeah, this one is going to be a win, even though even if there's no forced win right now, there is honestly no way to spoil it. Though I might regret these words.
There is commentator's curse. We've had that happen so many times where we're like, "Yep, this game is over, GG's," and then all of a sudden you turn around and there's just some sort of wild tactic on the board. But it does seem like this one is probably in the bag there.
Yeah. All right. Let's maybe go back to bird's eye view.
It seems like that would be a necessary win for Athens because it looks like Viktor Gajic is doing very well. He's just scored his victory there, so that's a point for SLU. We also see Nicolosi seems to be completely dominating the position there. I know at some point it said there might have been some sort of fortress, but I think practically this is very difficult to play.
I don't know. I think we should go take a look because there's in this kind of endgame, there's only two evaluations, either a win or a draw. There's nothing in between. And it's not that this would collapse instantly, because for now, White has covered all the bases.
Yeah, and you want to make sure you're not getting too impatient there. But it also seems that Nicolosi has more time, even though it's a little bit of a time advantage in this kind of situation. If you're trying to defend, you do not want to be the person who's lower on time. It's a much more difficult position to be in.
He is struggling a little bit to find a plan now, though, because he just missed a chance, I think, to walk his king over the f-file. And now he'll have to find some kind of Zugzwang based idea to do this, because White is just going to shuffle for as long as he can. And now I think he's found it. Now he after this move, the king comes in. And once the king comes in, he'll walk to c3. And this will be the end of it.
Yeah, and it was pointed out in chat, it is 5-5, all tied right now. This is going to be important, maybe giving St. Louis a bit of a lead there. So going into the last round.
I believe it will actually be tied after this game if all the results are correct right now, because on board 3, Draculakos won against Shelev Oberoi. So this round is tied for now. And if St. Louis wins it +1, then we should have a tied score.
Oh, I see. Yeah, then it will all be tied up, which is actually the most exciting thing to go into the last round with everything tied up. So personally, as a commentator, hoping that happens, and we see it. So this is really going to be decided in this last round.
Yeah, we see Nicolosi's win by checkmate here, and it is really tied up completely. So everything to play for in the last round, and hopefully SLU will have all 4 players back on board.
That's also true that they are going to have one of their strongest players back, which I think will be pretty important. And he's kind of been gone for the past 2 rounds, so we'll see if that will be able to skew it. But both teams are going to need to bring their A game. I think this is either one could win the match at this point.
Or we could also get the tie breaks that we found unlikely.
Yeah, we will see on that. But as we see, it's 6-6, completely tied. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what happened here?
I mean, for this round, honestly, there were quite a few interesting games. Well, to be fair, there were only 3 of them, because Aryan Chopra, let's just say he profited from Yanis Kalogeri's showing some sportsmanship there and offering him a draw when I think he was still not really ready to play the game. And from the other games, I'd say there was a huge fight between Draculakos and Oberoi, and Athens really scored a big point to kind of keep them in the match, because we'll have to see how the last round goes. But so far, they have scored really well from the chances that they had.
Absolutely. And going into round 4, quick reminder that every board is going to be playing their corresponding board. So this is really the real fight going on here. And I mean, I think it's going to be important for every single player to bring their A game, because we're going to see Dimitrios Alexis playing Aryan Chopra. We're going to see Kalogeris playing Gajic. We're going to see Draculakis playing Nicolosi, and then Nicolas playing Shelev. So each board with their corresponding board completely tied up. Athens does have their first 2 boards playing with white pieces, which, tends to be a good sign there. But then again, SLU also has a player who's had to forfeit a round back. So I don't know, that could be pretty exciting. And as you mentioned, there was, a chance for Athens to get another half point there if they had made Aryan Chopra play, because he only had 10 seconds on the clock when he came back from his fire alarm. But they didn't do that, showed some good sportsmanship there. So it's really anyone's match here.
Yeah, everything's still to play for, and it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, they call it crunch time here, And maybe we'll see our tie breaks. We were looking all during last season for some tie breaks, but we never really got it. So you never know. But in this 4th round, I wonder if we're going to see players shift their strategies a little bit. Play some exciting chess, or go for wins, or just play it safe. So we'll get a sense of that here with these openings.
I think with everything on the line, it's more likely that they will play something safe or just get a feel for the position. Because more than anything, you don't want to be the guy who messes up and loses fast in the decisive round. I think for now, let's take a look at board one. Because I'm already glad to see Aryan Chopra playing moves and playing them fast, meaning he's back and hopefully back at full strength here.
Back and ready to rumble here. And
Yeah.
we also see him playing the guy bathed in darkness, Alexis. So he's had a superpower there with that. And tell us a little bit about what we're seeing in this position here, Alex.
It might look like Aryan Chopra is doing the exact opposite of what I said and not playing it safe, by pushing h5, h4. But in this kind of time on a variation, it's a very typical idea. It's not directly connected to attacking the white king, but you want to just open the h file, and this would make it hard for white to play anything like f4 or basically any active move on the king side. So this h5, h4 is a very positional idea. And now he will probably develop more calmly with bishop e7, knight f6, or bishop d7. And white sometimes tries to punish this with very direct play. But here I think he's not going to go for anything too crazy. Maybe just play bishop g5. I don't know if that makes any sense. Or maybe take on c6. I honestly don't play these positions with either color too much, so I think players have the potential to surprise me here easily.
Yeah, it definitely could happen. And, maybe we will see players playing it safe because, as you said, no one wants to be the person who loses for their team. But we might also see some exciting moves because I think a lot of players really just want to score that point and take their team to victory as well. Seems like we have some early pawn pushes in board 4. Should we take a look at some of the other games with bird's eye view?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's a good idea.
All right, as we get it up here, okay, let's take a look. Board 2 is interesting still in all the early stages of the games. We have this open F file in board 3. Which board kind of catches your eye?
I feel like board 2 is just something went really wrong there.
We can take a look. Let's learn some stuff. What went really wrong here?
I mean, right now apparently f5 is a terrible move, but white kind of just chucked the pawn in there for I wasn't exactly sure what, but after f5 he might get a chance to show for what he did it for. So now the knight has to drop back to a8. And you go with b4 and knight d4, and suddenly everything clicks in white's position. So I think f5 just really underestimated that when you're up just one pawn, all it takes is a little bit of positional play, and suddenly white is doing very, very well. This I think also the nerves in play, because you just want to play it safe. You don't want to get mated. You play this kind of f5 move, but it turns out you're just inviting all the moves with tempo. Yeah, now knight d4, and there's no way to... okay, there's knight c7, but this pawn is going to remain very, very weak. There's bishop g5. Are we blundering? I think
are we blundering?
We are blundering, yes.
Oh my, look at his face. I think he realizes it, but none of us saw it. So, I mean, you can't be too mad at the player there, because if we blunder
these are the things that you feel very stupid as a player, missing these things. That's why I said usually experienced players play it safe. They play lines they know, and they kind of see what happens. If nothing happens, then you can make a draw. But here you see big mistakes from both sides, and this game isn't over just because of this blunder. Yeah, because e6 will still going to be taken, and maybe you have to play queen h2 or queen g3. It's not pleasant, but it keeps the game going.
Yeah, it looks like it could be. It looks like it could be very, very uncomfortable. And you saw him like just kind of making an expression like he's not very happy with what just happened. And I don't think it was a tactical choice. It was probably just a blunder, which again we didn't really see either. It feels like there should be a way to defend that knight, but if you're not careful, there isn't. And I mean, it looks like queen g3 is the more active move, but at the same time, then you could be hit with a f4 at some point. So it just depends what you want to do there, what risks you take.
The biggest issue right now is that he's taking his time. He should understand that whichever move he plays, it doesn't make a big difference. So yeah, just play the move and try to not be down 2 minutes on the clock, because your position is bad enough without the time deficit. You have to search for every chance you can get here.
Absolutely, and as was pointed out by Alex and also Chatter here, knight e6 is in fact hanging, so it isn't over. You're going to be losing a little bit of material, but you still have some options. The pawns will be a bit weak, the d pawn will be a bit weak, and there are ways to come back. You can't really. You just have to use your time well, and then try to find all the tactics you can.
Yeah, I think let's go back to bird's eye view and have a look at the other boards as well, because here they'll want to be somewhat precise. In fact, I would from the other two games we haven't seen yet, I would kind of want to go to board 4 right now, because they have a very interesting strategic position.
Yeah, let's do it.
Where black has this huge space advantage on the queen side. White has a space advantage in the center with this pawn chain, and at the same time, the knight on a4 is keeping everything under control here. It's very hard to tell who's better. I would generally like White's position more, because imagine that we take off all the rooks here, then White would have maneuvers for the knight. He tries to go for it in the same way. Still, something like this could be very strong. And black his position feels more cramped, even though he still has this pawn chain, and it's a big asset. But I think White's position is easier to play and might just be objectively more pleasant. And he also has more time. So Sheriff Oberoi might be, let's say, tentatively a chance for SLU to score a point here.
Yeah, which again could be very vital in this final round. Every point needs to be taken. Especially a lot of the games right now are still in contention. But yeah, we'll see some technique here.
Yeah, this is going to be slowly developing now. I just found the position very very interesting. Oh wait, this is a blunder. Yeah, he blundered the d4 pawn. After bishop g5, there is no way to defend the d4 pawn, because he will either take on f4, or if the knight drops back, he will take on e3 and take the d4 pawn.
And he finds it. He finds it, and now it's
yes.
really uncomfortable. Yeah, and that's a very crucial pawn to blunder too.
Now, the bad thing about it is the position is so stable and static that there's no way to organize any counterplay. He was maybe relying on knight d5, because this wins a pawn theoretically, and black only wins it back on d4, but the whole center will collapse for it. So suddenly this one might go in Athens' way. We'll have to see. Yeah. I think we should go back to bird's eye, because there is much more stuff happening. I think board 1 is still very much kind of slowishly developing the way we saw it. So let's maybe take a look at board 3 here. I would say it is because it definitely looks like the one where SLU has the best chances right now.
Yeah, of getting their point there. Alrighty, so you're just up in exchange materially, and yeah, it looks like generally a good position. So how do you defend everything?
If it was a middle game of some kind, then you would think you have a pawn for the exchange. You don't even have a pawn. Okay, even so, it might be defensible, but in the end game, there's just no counterplay, and all White needs to do is trade pieces. For example, with knight g5, and it's just all too straightforward. Yeah, he plays it, and the rook is coming in. Here, knight f7 wins instantly. Yeah, knight f7, and this is going to be GG.
GG's. Yes, and that is a point for SLU, a very critical point here. So maybe it's for the best for Athens that they're winning there on board 4 against Shelev. So the two boards that are really in contention. So if board 3 and board 4, one goes to SLU, one goes to Athens, then everything will depend on these board 1s and board 2. So maybe we should take a look. It seems pretty even there, but we're seeing.
Let's go to board 2. I think
yeah. Go ahead.
I wanted to say to go to board 2, because there's a huge swing right there. I think, that Ioannis Kalogeris, he got out after the bad position we had, and now I think he fell into something else again. So his position was already okay, and now he's up on time, but he seems to have blundered some material, because queen e3 is a threat, except for and queen a1 is one as well, obviously. So his options are very, very limited. He might have to go rook d1, but after rook d1, knight e2 is just more or less forcing mate, because the knight comes to g3, all with check. So this one is, I think it's just going to slew. No questions asked.
Yeah, and he sees it, which
comes
is,
up with rook f1. Yeah, the queen e3 should just pick up the knight. He tries to go for some swindling chances with knight f7, but it should really not amount to much. Maybe even h6 is a move, or if you want to prevent knight f5, maybe g6. Yeah, but h6 is probably good enough. Well, once you're up so much, there is no need to be fancy. You just play the simplest move that you know works, and Gazik is experienced enough to know this.
Speed Chess, thank you for the raid. Yeah, and he's just gonna try again to defend against all those back rank threats. You're just up a piece. If you can defend against the threats, which it seems like there's not too many, then you're just winning this, and that could be the deciding factor in this match.
Yeah, so let's maybe go to bird's eye view, see if something else is happening unexpectedly. And Sheriff Oberoi is still lost. So considering how the match is going, probably we should go to board 1 and see if Aryan Chopra can seal it for the team, or if he knows that he can seal it for the team.
Yeah, because, and it basically means Alexis has to win this.
Yes, unfortunately for him, and his position is very far from winning at this point, as is his clock.
Yeah, and you see that with the time, only 5 seconds on his clock, and I don't think he knows he has to push for the win either.
I think he might know, but I'm not sure. In any case, it doesn't really matter, because he can only do his best to survive and hope to get chances. Now suddenly, after the exchange of queens, this king is suddenly very strong. And he's still not better, because the bishop is holding everything together here. But at least he can pretend to play for a win.
Well, he's going to have to.
Yeah, at the same time, I think the game of Viktor Gazik finished. So SLU has 8 points now, which means Athens needs to win every remaining game.
Yeah, if they get a draw, this will go to SLU. So this is a must-win for Demetrius here. With 17 seconds on his clock, he is able to even the time a little bit, which I think is miraculous that he survived his king being so exposed with that queen with so little time. But it's, how do you even push? How do you make chances if you absolutely have to here?
You have to activate the rook, or this would also help. Yeah, because he blocked the c4 idea. d6 was never hanging because of this push, but now he blocked it with the rook. So king d6 is suddenly a serious threat, and he might actually win the game.
That would be absolute clutch.
Yeah, now there are chances. He will take it, and this is a very one-sided pushing position, and this bishop is now completely cut off. What? Okay, that is a very unnecessary choice, but it might still win. These are very hard to defend.
Yeah,
it is a very risky decision, though.
So how do you defend
absolutely no need. You blockade one pawn and you check the king away from the other pawn. Yeah, like this, and now you just kind of stay on these ranks, and the bishop is not strong enough to cover the king from the checks. You just give check and go back. You can also wait. Yeah, b7. You give check again. And the issue is, whenever the bishop comes over, you can usually give the rook for one pawn and take the other with your king.
Yeah, so you have to keep that bishop on that line defending the d pawn. You can't allow that sacrifice. Also, especially if he knows that he only needs a half point to cement it for SLU, it's kind of hard to push for a win here.
Yeah, he's really struggling to come up with ideas. And yeah, he plays b7, but now king c7 is even cleaner. And of course, yeah, this is a draw now. Yep.
And we see it. And that means the victory of the match is going to SLU there. With that, it came down to half a point, Alex. That is crazy.
Yeah, indeed. It was a very, very close match. And I mean, a lot of kind of dramatic developments. And in the end, they really clutched it in the last round.
Yeah, and just absolutely fantastic play by Athens, who really came close to taking the match there. And it's kind of interesting how that all could have unfolded, especially with the fire alarm gambit there. But it means that Athens was unable to secure a victory or go to tiebreaks, and St. Louis has taken home this match, but very close, 8.5 to 7.5. So still good for tiebreaks for Athens. Who do you think was the MVP of St. Louis here?
I mean, we see the results. Yeah, there is no question about it. And I think Viktor Gazik scored 4 out of 4, and he was just always up to the task when the game became intense. When it all came down to time trouble, he was always there. And I think this is the quality that you need to really win the close ones.
Absolutely. And we're going to have a really exciting interview coming up. We're going to interview Grandmaster Aryan Chopra, maybe hear a little bit about what happened with the fire alarm there and his time away. So excited to hear that. Stay with us. Any questions you have for him in chat, feel free to ask away, and we will see you soon. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Unfortunately, we were not able to get him on just yet. So we are just going to end the week, but it was a really, really exciting couple of matches we had here. Excited to see what SLU and Mizzou and all the other teams do this season. We'll see you next week, and thank you so much for joining us with 2025 Collegiate Chess League.